Hello, my name is Marcus Ruiz-Evans. We will be starting the recall candidate debate at 10 o'clock. We'll be starting the recall candidate debate at 10 o'clock. In about half an hour, the candidates will start streaming in between now and we'll start at 10 o'clock. Thank you. The stream will be on until that time. No, I'm not. Okay. O.C. Hennig, Mercury, Capelowitz, Bramante, Abrath, Petreska. Hey, Cade, we're going to get started real soon. We're having a recall candidate debate. Hi, Jackie. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
You're on at 10:45.
Okay. Do I hang out and watch or do I wait until 10:45?
We have not in the stream. We have a YouTube channel. It's in the email that you got.
Yeah.
So there's one link for the public, which
Oh, okay.
could be
So
used. So you could go to.
I watch the public until 10:45 and then I come in.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Gotcha.
Thank you. It's just we had a lot of demand. We want to get as many people in as possible, so we have to stage it.
I'm grateful to be included in this debate. So thank you.
Oh, totally. Yeah, you're included.
Forward to it.
Okay. Hey, and the other thing is that you can post comments on the YouTube page where the debate's hosting, and I will occasionally take those and post those in. So even though you're not appearing as a candidate for the first 45 minutes, if you see what a candidate says and you go, that's not right, fiscal year 2020 was actually this, or your statement on children in cages is wrong, I can post that as long as it's a relevant comment to something someone's saying and it has your name attached to it. So it's a way of you appearing in the debate before you're in the debate.
Awesome. I like that.
It's open to the public. So I told everybody they can do this. Not everybody takes it up.
Okay. I'll go check that out and let my base know that I'm not on until 10:45. So I think I'll have a lot of my followers watching.
Oh, please do, and please have them comment.
I have
and
them
when
going
you're
out like crazy on social media right now.
and it's totally fair that when you're speaking, your comment, your fan base can go, great speech. She nailed it on this part, and I can post it. That's a relevant commentary. So. I don't know if they're your supporters or not. If people pop up and they go, I love what this candidate's saying, I'll have to post it.
I have tech people kind of watching right now, and they're saying that I'm getting an echo with you. So we're live right now. You and I.
Yeah, we are live. Although the show won't start till 10 o'clock.
Right,
I like to start the stream.
My people are watching, and they said there's an echo.
An echo. 1 second here. Do you have the program open on two different things? So. All right, let's do a sound check. Can you do 1, 2, 3?
Me?
Just say one. Yeah,
1, 2,
just
3.
say.
Yeah, see? It's mild, but it's there.
Okay. I would say log out of the stream. When you come back in, it should be corrected. Sometimes StreamYard has these little tech issues. As long as you're coming, so first your voice and your visual are coming in perfectly. So great. I can hear you fine. And at least on my end, there's no echo. I understand on your end there is, but on our end, there's no echo. It might be on the final one going out to YouTube, but right now you appear to be coming in very clear. Like I can hear everything you're saying.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, no, you fixed it. You caught it, whatever it was.
Yes, because I'm a tech master. That's I knew exactly what I was doing.
Either, at all.
At every second of the way, I knew exactly how to fix this.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go. I'm going to boot you from the stream. Okay. Apologies.
No,
I'll see you at 10:45.
I'll see you soon, and thanks again for including me.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, bye.
Okay. 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 Yes. Yeah. 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 Basically, yeah. Sometimes StreamYard's just a little screwy. So, eh. Hey, if you want, you can post comments about how the candidates are doing. And okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah. I'm going to start calling people in a minute here just to make sure they know. Yeah, I think so. I think we will. Okay. All right. I'll talk to you in a bit. Peace.
That he can see me.
Joel, awesome. Good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So we're connected?
We are perfectly connected. Works just
Okay.
perfect like last time. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to hang up on my IT person who's an expert.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're coming in clear. Yeah.
Okay, Mark, over and out. Bye. Okay, you have my undivided attention.
We will be starting at 10, and I'm notifying all the candidates and checking up and making sure they come into the stream. So we're live, but the show doesn't start till time. We're till 10. We are live, but we're not starting till 10. I do that just so we don't have any tech issues and everybody can come in and make sure to get in the stream. So I'm going to go call a bunch of people and harass them and get them on the show, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Okay,
Joel.
can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, loud and clear. And your video is coming in perfect too.
Okay, great.
Dan, how are you doing? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right, I'm calling everybody to make sure they get here on time. They know, but just a friendly call. We're live, but we won't start till 10. So we're live, but we're not starting till 10.
I'm going to mute myself.
Hey, Marcus.
Tom, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Very well. What's up?
We are live, but we're not starting till 10. We're live, but we're not starting till 10. Candidate Ventresca and candidate Kapelovitz are here. I'm also following up with candidates OC and McCurry. So we're live, but we won't start for 15 more minutes. So chill out. Let me take this real quick.
Okay. How are you, sir?
Just fine. I'm in San Francisco. Where are you?
I'm in Santa Monica. Not the other end of the world, but here I am. So, what is your name again, sir?
Joel Ventresca.
Okay, I'll do that. Hello. All right, thank you.
Retweet it.
Okay. All right, I'll see you in a bit.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Take care.
Well, you're a candidate, so you have to wear a necktie.
Well, it's optional.
I understand that, but I guess you want to look decent. I don't care if I look decent. It doesn't matter. I'm not after anything here.
Well, it's probably got more to do with character and what we're saying.
Well, you would hope so. Yeah. Hey, Marcus.
Yes.
Marcus, I don't know what the ground rules are here.
1 second. Holly, hi.
Hi.
You will be coming on at 10:45. So I'd like to ask you to leave the studio, but come back at 10:45.
Okay, and I'll just watch and see what the conversation is. Will they be linked at all, or will they be completely separate? Do you have an idea?
It will be broadcast on YouTube, which is a separate channel. The link was provided in an email to you. It says for the public. You click on the YouTube link, and that'll be the broadcast part where you can watch and comment. And then just come back at 10:45.
Great. Look forward to seeing you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So the format, Tom, roughly was going to be, I have it. So roughly we were going to have a introduction. Well, actually, it's going to go like this. So I'll do an introduction when we start in about 10 minutes. I'll introduce you, Tom. I'll introduce the format, and I'll introduce the candidates in about 3 minutes, maybe 5. Then we'll go to 2 questions from you, Tom. Any questions you want to ask them, you'll be able to ask the candidates directly a question. They'll have about 1.5 minutes to respond. I will be doing time. You don't have to worry about that. You'll be able to ask a question of every single candidate. We'll see what they say. I'll measure time. They get about 1.5 minutes. Then we'll go to your second question, Tom. Any question you want, it'll go directly to candidates. Same thing, 1.5 minutes per candidate. After that, like we discussed, I do have a question from Katie that I'm going to ask them. They'll get a minute. Yeah, they'll get a minute to respond to that. And then we'll have candidate closing statements for 1 minute. That will finish the first round. We'll stop at 10:45. I timed everything out. It's going to fit within maybe like 1 minute, 2, around 10:45. Then we'll go to the next minute. So it's the exact same format. I'll walk everything through. So I'm going to do an introduction. I'm going to introduce the rules, the candidates, and you, Mr. Elias. Then we'll have candidates will be able to give their own introduction for about 2 minutes each. Then we'll have your first question, Tom, your second question, a question from Katie, and then a closing statement from each candidate.
Fine. Okay. Just needed to know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll walk through all of it.
There's one question I have that I might ask a slightly different version to each of the candidates, but it won't be the first question.
Fair enough. One second. David, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
James Hanning,
I
can
don't
you hear me okay?
I can hear you okay, and I have to apologize because while I have a better device here, I can't get StreamYard onto that device for some reason. So
Okay.
you have to put up with this hissing and whatever. And maybe, Marcus, what you'd want to do is keep me on mute. That way others won't be
I
bothered.
will.
Okay.
I'll keep you on mute, and then I'll make sure to unmute. Oh, whoa, here we go. Doug.
Good morning.
Oh, great. Okay. So real quick check. I'm just going to go around the room. Just say your name so everyone can hear you, and I can confirm everyone can hear each other. Joel, could you say your name, please?
Joel Ventresca.
Dan, could you say your name, please?
Dan Kapelovitz.
Tom, could you say your name, please?
Tom Elias.
Doug?
Doug Ossie.
James, could you say your name?
Jim Hanning.
David, can you say your name?
David Alexander Bermonte.
I know it seems a little silly. Did anyone have issues hearing anybody? I couldn't hear someone. Okay, so great. This is why we start early. I know it seems a little haphazard. A lot of shows start right on time, but we do this because it's virtual and allows us to make sure there's no hiccups at all when we start the show. That's why we start early, get everybody on. So because the first couple times we tried to do like right on time, and there's always someone's mic was out, someone's internet thing. So there's not going to be any issues. We're going to have a great show. We are live, but we won't start for 7 more minutes. We're going to start in 7 minutes. Just to get things going a little bit smooth, I'm going to go ahead and run over what we're going to do. Now, I'm going to do this when we get started. So you're going to hear all of this again and for the public, but just so that everybody, it's part of a smooth operation. So, here are the candidates that will appear in the first round. The order that the questions will be asked was based upon a random list generated list. So there's no preference for any of the candidates. I took everyone's name and I put it in random.org, which is a random list generator created by Swedish scientists in the 1970s. It's well respected. Totally random order, no preference for any candidate. What you see is what a computer said. I had no influence over. The format of the debate is going to be relatively simple. We'll have 2 questions will be asked by Tom Elias to each of you. Tom is picking the questions. I don't know the questions. It's whatever Tom says it is. He'll be asking 2 questions. Each of you will have a minute and a half to respond. So Tom's going to ask a question. You got a minute and a half. Next question from Tom, minute and a half. The third question will be a random one taken from a list of 8 questions from Katie Grimes. I will be asking that on her behalf. You will have a minute to respond to that. Roughly the format will go like this. At 10 o'clock in about 5 minutes, I'm going to do an introduction. I'm going to introduce this debate. I will introduce roughly who's here, and I will introduce Tom Elias. And then we will go to the candidate introductions. You, the candidate, will have 2 minutes and no more than 2 minutes to introduce yourself. Then we will go to Tom's first question. So, introductions, Marcus. Then we go to you speak for 2 minutes. We'll go through everybody. Then we're going to go to Tom's first question. All of you will be able to answer it. You will have 90 seconds, a minute and a half to answer his first question. Tom will then ask another question. You will have an additional minute and a half to respond to that. Finally, we will have a list of 8 questions from Katie, and I will randomly be throwing out at you, and you will have 1 minute to respond. You will additionally have a closing candidate statement of 1 minute. So you get a 2-minute introduction. You're going to have 3 questions asked of you. You'll get a minute and a half for the first 2 questions. The third question is kind of a lightning round, only a minute. And your closing statement will be 1 minute. We're going to start in 4 minutes. Does anyone have any questions? Is any of that not clear?
Yes, Marcus,
Yeah,
would you
Marcus,
give me a 10-second warning when our time is dwindling?
Sure. Tom?
I was just going to ask if responses run on a bit, you can mute anybody that runs on. Is that correct?
Yes. So we're running a tight ship. I'm going to keep you to time. I will give you this. If everyone's okay with that, this means 10 seconds. So you need to start wrapping up. Well, because I know it seems a little bit less professional, but when I tell people like 10 seconds, you can see it jars their mind. They forgot what they were going to say, and they're like, so when I do a visual, they go. So please watch for these hands, okay? Because some of you are like, if you don't see the hands, I'm going to have to mute you. But we're going to run a tight ship. Please don't make me do that. I love you all. I think you're all beautiful humans, but I'll do it if I have to. Just because to keep fair, we want to have a tight ship. We want to give candidates a bunch of times, and also it's to help you. So when viewers watch a video and they see answer, question, answer, that's exciting. They like that. Viewers don't really want to see someone speak for 5 minutes anymore. That's just not really the name of the game. They like little snippets. So this is actually designed to make you appear as interesting as possible and to increase the amount of people who will watch this video, not just today, but in the future. So the election's in 2 months. This is a video that you can have that entire 2 months going, hey, look at how well I did. So we expect whatever views we get today to increase by a factor of 5 over the next 2 months. We are the only people hosting debates like this. And we have Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good, very good. We're going to start in 2 minutes, real quick, just to let you know, Daniel. And this is all of the candidates here. Here's what I will introduce this again in a second, Daniel, but just so that you know. There will be an introduction by me. I will introduce Tom Elias, the reporter, the columnist asking questions. I will introduce the format of the debate and quickly the candidates. Each candidate will have a 2-minute introduction. Tom will then ask his first question. You will have a minute and a half to respond. Tom will ask his second question. He'll have a minute and a half to respond. Then we'll go to questions from Katie, and you will have a closing statement. We have to get started, Daniel. I apologize, but I'll run over all of this again. Thank you all for being here. We're going to start in about 1 minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to commercial. It's a little teaser we have. Then I will come and immediately start with the introduction. And once I introduce Tom, Tom will ask a question, and I'm going to be basically just timekeeper at that role. So I'll do a little intro. Tom will start driving the car. He'll ask you questions, and I'm going to be Mr. Timekeeper. Please stay on time. You're going to get this signal, meaning you have 10 seconds to wrap it up. Other than that, I'll mute you. And I don't want to do that, but we have a lot of people. We're trying to be accommodating to everybody, and it makes a better show if we keep it streamlined. The audience seems to respond well to a well-oiled machine. Okay, it is time. I'm going to go to commercial. We will come back, and I will introduce everybody. So here we go.
It's the California Recall Debate. Hosted by Yes California.
Thank you. That was an introduction by Bill Hensley, Broadway music star of 30 years. We're getting a little reverb, so forgive me. I'm going to have to mute everybody but Tom. Someone has this on 2 different channels, so no problems. Let me just do this. Okay, that cleared it up. Tom, can you hear me okay?
Sure can.
Okay. Welcome. This is the official Yes California Recall Candidate Debates for candidates who will be appearing on the Recall Candidate ballot. We have a very special show for you. Multiple rounds of debates hosted by Yes California. In our first round, as you will see, are the candidates Doug Ossie, James Hennick, Daniel Mercuri, Dan Kapelovitz, David Bermonte, Kevin Pathrath wasn't able to make it, and Joel Ventresca. Additionally, we will be having Tom Elias host these debates. Yes California is the only organization who's been having more debates with more candidates than anyone in California. We were proud to host debates featuring 1/4 of all declared candidates. And with this debate and a follow-up debate featuring Steve Chavez Lodge next weekend, we'll be hosting 1/4 of all final to appear candidates. We've had more debates than anyone, and we are proud to do that. Additionally, we have Tom Elias with us today. Tom Elias is famous for these reasons. In November 11th, 2002, an op-ed was written by Mr. Elias called Recall Gray Davis. Now, as my understanding, Mr. Elias was not necessarily suggesting the recall happen, but he covered the topic, and that seemed to start the entire 2003 recall. He has been nominated for 3 Pulitzer Prizes. In addition, he has received awards from the National Headliners Club, the California Newspaper Publishers Association, and the Los Angeles Press Club. He has 92 publications across California print his work about twice a week to a total readership of 2.2 million. We are proud to have Mr. Elias here, showing continuity between the first recall election and this one, and I cannot think of being in better hands. Well, let's get to the format of the debate. We're going to have an introduction by me. That's going on right now. We will next go to candidate introductions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes and no more than 2 minutes to introduce themselves as the way that they see fit. We will then go to the first question by Tom Elias, where he will ask the people directly his question. I don't know the question. It's up to Tom. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to Tom's question. There will be a second question from Tom. He will have an additional 1.5 minutes to respond. Then we will finally go to a third round of questions, which will be from 8 random questions provided by Katie Grimes. And I will ask those. You will have 1 minute to respond to those. And finally, a closing statement of 1 minute. I'm going to walk you through every single step, but 2-minute intro, 1.5 minute question from Tom, 1.5 minute question from Tom, second, 1 minute question, and then closing statements. So with that, I'd like to do introductory statements. We will do it in this order. The candidates have been randomly ordered by random.org. I know this seems a little bit excessive, but we like to try to be fair. We're using a computer program invented in the 1970s by Swedish scientists. The order of names as you see it is truly random, and no human could have ever done that or figured it out. So first candidate introduction will be by Doug Ossie. We're very pleased to have Doug Ossie here. And before we get started, I wanted to point something out. We're hosting one of the top Republican candidates, top Democrat candidate, top Solidarity candidate, and top Green Party candidate. And we're having a host from the 2003 recall here. So we're representing multiple parties, multiple people, and multiple timeframes, and we could not be happier to do so as a service to you, California. Doug Ossie, in 2 minutes and no more than 2 minutes, your introductory statement, sir. Oh, and you probably need to be unmuted.
How do you get off unmuted?
Sorry, I apologize. Doug Ossie.
Okay, so is my mic live?
Your mic is live, sir.
All right. Marcus, thank you for inviting me. Tom, it's nice to see you again. Been a while since we visited. I am running for governor because this state is in shambles. The public school system seriously is underperforming. Public safety has been totally compromised. The person in charge, Gavin Newsom, is at the core, the center of these failures, and he needs to be replaced. There's 2 questions on your ballot. The first one is, shall Governor Newsom be recalled? I urge you to vote yes, because that's the only way to change things. When you get to question 2, I urge you to consider the value that experience in office and publics and in the private sector brings to the ability to get things done. I am not the best speaker in this race, but nobody running for this office today can match my record of accomplishment in public office. I have worked to cut taxes. I didn't talk about it, I just did it. I've worked to reduce regulation. When I was a member of Congress, we were able to get permits issued for massive infrastructure projects up and down this state. I know how to make communities safer. I'm very familiar with homelessness and the challenge that drug addiction and mental illness brings. When I'm governor, you will have a hands-on person who is unafraid of having direct metrics applied to their efforts at making things better. My website is ocforcalifornia.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Doug Osi. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Doug. Next up will be James Hannick. Professor Hannick, 2-minute introduction.
Yes, my name is Jim Hannick. I represent the American Solidarity Party. As an educator, I advocate for the common good and religious freedom. I'm pro-justice, yes to racial equality in housing, schools, and the workplace, and pro-environment, yes to meeting the reality, the grave challenge of climate change. And I'm pro-family, yes to marriage, wider ownership of housing, a living wage, and good childcare. And I am pro-life, no to abortion, no to assisted suicide, no to the death penalty, and no to nuclear weapons. Visit us at solidarity-party.org and James Hannick, all one word, jameshannick.org. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person will be Daniel Mercuri.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you are unmuted.
I'm unmuted now. Well, thank you, Marcus, for having me here. I really appreciate the invite, and to everybody who's joined us too. I really appreciate being here and being able to have discourse and express ourselves about our difference of opinions on how we would handle the state. So just to let everybody know, my name is Daniel Mercuri. I'm a veteran. I've served 2 tours, 3 operations, and one of the things that throughout my race, I've been running now for about a year. And talking to people up and down the state of California, one of the biggest things I've realized is that if you're somebody who loves your sovereignty, you're somebody who loves civil liberty, you're somebody who actually loves America, you've now become the new outlaw. You are now the new terrorist. And personally, that is not what I fought for. And I'm getting tired of having to deal personally with career politicians or, constantly hearing, the amount of legislation that has been passed. And usually the amount of legislation that is getting passed is usually further indication of further restrictions on the people. And that is not what I fought for. I did not fight for socialism, communism, and Marxism. So for me, this has nothing to do with necessarily, I want the title of governor. It has to do with the fact that it is time that we starve the government and that we feed the people. And we start removing politicians out of politics. So I stand on God. I stand on country, meaning the Constitution. I actually love the Constitution, and family. And when it comes to family and God, those are the things that have been removed heavily out of our country, out of our state. And that is not something that I am willing to put up with any longer. And that is why I'm in this race. And this is why I think it's time that we put somebody in office that does not have any political ties, and that we actually start focusing on the person who's actually going to start cleaning house. And I believe I am that candidate who is up for that task. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Dan Kapelovitz.
All right, thank you. As far as I know, I'm the only remaining candidate that's actually running against the recall. I'm saying vote no on the recall. but I am running as an alternative to the other candidates. The recall was put in place by right-wing Republicans who know that the only way they could possibly get elected is if they do a recall vote where they don't need a majority of the vote. Right now, I read a poll, Larry Elder has 16% of the vote, and he's in the lead. He could win the governorship with only 16%. You can even do it with less. So we don't want to be a victim of Larry Elder abuse. We don't want him to be the governor. So vote no on the recall. But me, I think I have no ties, just like Daniel before me. I am running as a Green, but I'm not a knee-jerk anything, Republican, Democrat, Green. I will fight for all Californians. I deal with all walks of life. I talk to all kinds of Californians. I know what people want. And I'm for criminal justice reform. I'm for animal rights. I'm for ranked choice voting. I'm only going to be governor for about a year if I win, unless I win the re-election. And we need to change the structure. We need to get ranked choice voting so that more voices can actually get into government. And, talk about God. God shouldn't really be in the government. It's separation of church and state. But if you believe in God, then you want me to be your governor because I was randomly chosen by God to be number one on the ballot by the random drawing based on the last initials of my name. So thank you. Vote for Kapelovitz, not just for the hell of it. Vote for Kapelovitz because I am the right person for the job. Thank you.
Okay, I see we're already in campaign mode. So let's go to Bramante. David Bramante, please. Your introductory statement, sir.
Hey, Marcus, thanks for inviting me. Thanks, everybody, for participating. My name is David Alexander Bramante, and I'm a small business owner. I have two businesses based out of Los Angeles. I have a tech marketing company, and I have a real estate company, which I've had for almost 20 years. I'm third-generation Californian, and my family's from LA, so third-generation LA. I'm a father of a 7-year-old girl, a 5-year-old boy, and a 6-month-old boy. So we're very invested in what's going on, what's been happening over the last year, especially in Los Angeles and California. With my real estate company, I've been a realtor for over 16 years, specializing in both residential and commercial, which is pretty unique. So with my multifamily sales experience and development, I've been close to a lot of these issues, really on the ground: homelessness, affordability, housing. That's been what I've been involved in now for almost 21 years. Growing up in Los Angeles, my mom raised my brother and I as a single mom. So on that level, I've experienced being evicted and not having a home. I lived with my grandma and grandpa, which a lot of people are not lucky, to have those types of options. So on that level too, with evictions and homelessness, I have a lot of experience. I really believe after the last year and a half that more people like us, not professional politicians, not policy, so-and-so called experts get involved. I really think this is a great opportunity with the recall for a lot of regular people who may or may not have been considering politics. And I've always tracked it, and I've always considered running locally. I just feel like after the last year and a half, we need to get more involved because these issues are not getting solved by politicians. I think that we need to open up California. We need to support businesses. We need to support freedom of choice. I think that's really being threatened lately, especially with vaccine and mask mandates. I have to disagree with Dan. I'm totally in favor for the recall. I think everybody should be. I think it's our right to do this. And so I think it's great that we're having.
We have to stop there. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, next up is Joel Ventresca. Joel, you will be your 2-minute introduction, and then we will get started with questions. And I have another little spicy note to give. Joel Ventresca, 2 minutes, please, sir.
Newsom represents a rigged economic and political system that makes the super rich richer while the rest of us are pushed down the economic ladder. Newsom's numerous failures have made inequities for women and people of color worse. Let's be clear. Newsom is a corporate establishment insider Democrat who is incompetent and corrupt. I'm the flip side of that. I'm a progressive, anti-establishment, outsider Democrat who has a record of competence in government at the San Francisco International Airport for 31 years. I'm also worked for the City and County of San Francisco's Aging Commission for 3 years. So I have 34 years of exceptional award-winning public service. I'm also the most qualified Democrat on the ballot to replace the current failing governor. I am a former City and County of San Francisco environmental commissioner, and I'm also a neighborhood and labor leader. I was the Democratic Party runner-up for San Francisco mayor in 2019. If elected governor, I will enact high-quality healthcare and education, cradle to grave for all residents, remove the corrupt influence of private money from politics, and reinvent California into the first zero carbon emission state in the nation. Newsom is a protege of Willie Brown, who comes out of the most corrupt urban political machine in California and America. And that is linked to widespread criminality and other problems.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to questions from Tom. Tom will ask the first question. Before we get started, I see the comments on YouTube, please, and we're going to do it. So please send in the comments on YouTube. Please comment about the candidates, how they're doing. If you like what they're doing or not, we'll post that. I needed to make sure a special note was made. This is a debate. Now, we'd like to keep it cordial and respectful, no name calling or yelling, but you are asked to point out in your responses why your answer is better than everybody else, why you're the better candidate than anyone else. So as we have the questions coming forward, please keep thinking about why your response is better than others. You can also call out other candidates. If you heard the response and go, these people said this, this is my response and why I think it's better. Let's keep it to the policy, but it's okay to be a little bit aggressive on policy. You're going to be governor of the world's 5th largest economy. People need to know that you know how to stand up for your ideas and that you need to know why you're better than the other ones. Additionally, please answer the question. Many times we have questions and politicians will not answer the question and just give a platitude or repeat some point of their campaign. We will be calling you out if you do not answer the question. So please answer the question and please address your questions to why you think you're better than the others. We'll now go to the first question from Tom Elias. To all the candidates, I will be monitoring time. Tom, your first question, sir.
Yes, thank you, Marcus, and thank you all for your introductory statements. I would like to suggest that we had one order for the introductory statements, and perhaps we should do the reverse order for the answers to the first question, and then go back to the original order for the next question that I asked in general of the candidates. So the question is rather simple. I'd like each of you to name what you consider to be the 3 most vital issues in California today, and briefly, how you would solve them.
Okay, the first person up will be, in reverse order, Joel Ventresca for 1.5 minutes. I'm going to make sure you're muted. Joel Ventresca, what are the top 3 issues, in your opinion, sir?
We're coming out of a recession. We have a high unemployment rate. The economy has to be number one. We have to get people in a position where they can get back to part-time or full-time work and re-engage into the economy. Because of the mismanagement of the governor, at one point, nearly half the workforce lost their jobs. This was unprecedented. And so we have to reopen the economy as safely as possible and as quickly as possible. We have to reopen the public school system. This evidence, the facts, and the science related to the schools, the public schools throughout the state of California, which have been closed for 1.5 years, the science and the evidence and the facts shows that never should have happened. It was a colossal miscalculation by an incompetent governor. And so we need to get the economy restarted. We need to get the schools restarted, and we need to follow the science. Now, my approach would be to identify indisputable facts, evidence, and science, and that would guide law, regulation, and policy direction. I would also make sure that stakeholders are brought in to the governor's office to find out what should be minor and major changes in terms of law, regulation, and policy to improve the economy and improve the schools.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next up will be
I want
David
to point out,
Bramante.
Mr. Ventresca really only named one issue, which is recovery from the pandemic, as the single issue that he thinks is most important in California, although he didn't use those terms. I would like you to name 3 issues if you can.
Well,
Each of you. No, it's all right. You've had your shot. So, but you didn't quite answer the question as it was asked.
So do I have a little more time to explain the top 3?
I'll give you an additional 30 seconds. I'm sorry, then we're going to go to the next person. If you want to throw 2 more in, Joel Ventresca.
Well, get the economy started, get the schools started, and address the blackouts and the wildfires and the drought, which are all major environmental problems, and we need to address those collectively.
Thank you. David Bramante, your top 3 issues that everybody should be focusing on.
Thank you.
And
Thanks,
how you
Tom,
would
for the
resolve
question.
them.
Definitely. I think the number one issue that everybody's feeling is affordability, and I think it's interlinked with the government's response to COVID. I think it's linked to homelessness. That'd be one issue. To immediately resolve that issue, because a lot of these are so complex, I would cut sales tax and gas tax immediately. I want people who are making money right now to take more home and be able to spend it the way they see fit. So I think that will immediately solve some affordability issues, but we'd have to dig in a lot more to that. Attached to that would be number 2, we have to open up the state. This is just a disaster that we keep flip-flopping back and forth. We're closing things, we're opening things. It's all over the place. It's been almost a year and a half since we all experienced COVID, March last year. And I think that we're in a very safe place. I'm on the border of Los Angeles County and Ventura County. When I'm in Los Angeles, it's very draconian. Everyone's running around scared. The news is saying we're all going to die. I go to Ventura. It's very nice. It's very calm. It's very open. People are walking around without masks. Some decide to wear masks, and that's the way it should be. The third thing, which I touched on, is homelessness. Everybody across the board is tired of looking at it, and we're tired of being so embarrassed that we haven't figured it out.
Thank you. Wow, that's succinct. Okay, next up is Dan Kapelovitz. The top 3 issues and how you would solve them as governor.
All right, I think the top 3 issues, or 3 of the main issues, are the economy, the environment, and criminal justice. And each of those have obviously sub-issues. So with the economy, we have homelessness. We got to protect people from getting thrown out of getting evicted. We got to keep the moratorium. We got to get some rent control. We got to keep people from becoming homeless in the first place. We got to get the homeless into homes, into houses. We have all this budget for it, and they're spending it. Doesn't seem like they really know what they're doing. We need to create renewable energy jobs. That deals with both the economy and the environment. We got to really expand that, which can get people into jobs, and it can also help the environment, which is also a big issue. We got forest fires, we got drought, all these environmental issues. We need to deal with renewable energy. I know that's a long process, but we need to address it. It's very serious. And then criminal justice, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm on the front lines of criminal justice. This is a human rights issue. We should be ashamed of the mass incarceration that we have. I think in the future, people are going to look back on this time and they're not going to believe how many people we throw into prisons for decades and decades. And we need to end insane sentencing. We need to actually get to the root of crime, not just throw people in prison. And I've been on the front lines of that. I believe I'm the person to deal with that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Daniel Mercurian. What are the top 3 issues that we should all be discussing, and how would you fix them if you became governor? Daniel Mercurian.
I think one of the top 3 are going to be the economy, homelessness, and education. One of the best things that we can do as an executor is to start dealing with state agencies when it comes to our taxes, to deregulate, and then of course, bring down the cost of living. When it comes to homelessness, some of the things that we can actually do is work with our nonprofits, over 612 agencies here that are tried and true in the state of California, and adjacent them with the Section 8 housing. But we need to remove red tape around Section 8 housing, because predominantly it only adheres to low income and not the homeless. And then when it comes to the homeless, we can also, what we haven't done is in the state constitution, we've actually standardized low income housing, but we haven't standardized in any way homelessness on how we're going to approach. And we actually absolutely can do that by creating a memorandum of understanding, where some counties have that with other counties and how to deal with their homeless. So I fail to see why all 58 counties are not engaging that, and to standardize that. And then when it comes to our education, we need to help teachers opt out of the CTA or the teachers union, because a lot of that with what's going on right now is bargaining collectivism. So we need to remove that, or we need to standardize that as well, or amend that. So that way that stops, because basically our unions are using our schools as bargaining tools. And then the teachers who want to get out there and teach aren't actually able to, because they're tied to the unions. So one of the best things that we can do is help them opt out. And then of course that's going to start thinning out some of the money that the unions require, and they're not going to be able to bully the people who are pretty much getting out. So the state can actually help them do this through some of our other state agencies as well. So these are really simple solutions that don't really cost the state or anybody or taxpayers extra money. The answers are already there. We're just not doing it because we have a bunch of legislators sitting on their hands.
Thank you. Next up will be James Hennig. James, you're unmuted. What are the top 3 issues? Hennig, you have to unmute yourself, sir. You're muted on your end. There you go. James Hennig, what are the top 3 issues and how would you solve them?
I think the top issue is that we in California have adjusted to what I would call a culture of death. At one point, we tolerated abortion. Now we pretty much celebrate it. At one point, we cared about the elderly. We respected the elderly. And now we suggest that the elderly, along with the disabled, we suggest that they think seriously about taking their own lives. That's physician-assisted suicide. For some extraordinary reason, we still haven't outlawed the death penalty. It's a violation of the dignity of the human person. And most ignored. University of California, Berkeley mines, its word, M-I-N-D-S, mines the nuclear stockpiling. Nuclear stockpiling amounts to state-sponsored terrorism. The second most important problem is the erosion of the family. We have to recognize that the family is the first unit of society. And the third most important problem is our lack of serious response to climate change.
Thank you. That's time. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to go to Doug Ossie. Doug Ossie, top 3 issues that everyone in California should be focused on, and how would you solve those if you were governor, sir?
Well, thank you. I think the three top issues are schools, public safety, and homelessness. On public schools, we need to get schools back open. We need to give parents certainty that their child will once again be in a classroom with a teacher learning things. We do that by giving parents choice as to where their child can attend school. And then we let the funding that the state provides for public education follow that child to wherever they go. The last leg of that stool on public education is that instead of relying on some bureaucrat in Sacramento to determine what it is that children are taught, we need to empower local school boards as the final authority for deciding what classroom curriculum should be. On public safety, we need to stop releasing criminals before they have finished their sentences. Governor Newsom has made it clear that his intention is to empty the jails and return these felons to our communities before they have paid their debt to society. He is inserting his judgment for the righteous decisions of judges and juries up and down this state. That has to stop. And finally, on homelessness, we need to change the standard that's embedded in California statute, moving from the imminent danger to themselves and others to someone who's drug addicted or mentally ill to the point where they cannot function properly.
Thank you, sir. We're now going to go to Tom.
Okay. In your responses to the first question, all of you talked about what you would do, but none of you named anything that you could do on your own. Everything that you suggested would have required legislative cooperation, legislative consent, and legislative action. So let's talk about an issue that's very much before the legislature right now, and that is housing, which a lot of people do feel is the most urgent issue in California today. We often see the figure of anywhere from 3.5 million to 5 million housing units being needed in California. And the legislature, whether that's correct or not is another matter, but that's what we see. And the legislature is trying to get to that via two bills, primarily called SB 9 and SB 10, which offer different solutions for trying to build more housing. So the question is this: do we need to build more housing, or should we convert a lot of the office buildings that are now being vacated due to the COVID, and the fact that a lot of the workers would rather work at home than spend 3 hours on the freeway every day commuting to and from work? Would you, as governor, do this, which you could do alone, which is to say, would you veto or sign either of these two bills, and why?
Okay, we're going to go in reverse order. So the first person to answer will be Doug Ossie.
So
Doug
I want
Ossie.
to.
I'm sorry.
I heard the question. I want to go back. Tom said that there were no specifics in my answer that the governor could do. I want to correct him on that. I specifically cited the release of criminals, which was a rulemaking process initiated by the governor that does not have to be done. It's not legislative driven. I also cited having curriculum decided at the local level, which today it's decided at the Department of Education. So I gave very specific answers to very specific problems. On the SB 9 and SB 10, we are far better served having local land use decisions made at the local level. The pattern of legislative interference in local land use decisions needs to stop. The people in Sacramento do not know the best way to develop Redding or Crescent City or Palm Springs. Those decisions need to be made at the local level. The way to build new housing is to reduce the impediments to people like me who can build housing. I've got a project, Tom. It's been in processing for 28 years to build 5,000 homes. That is a nightmare. It is a leading cause for why we don't have housing here, is that we look for reasons in this state not to do something instead of why we should. That needs to change.
Thank you. Next up will be James Hennick. James Hennick, how would you stand on SB 9 and SB 10? Would you support them? Would you oppose them? How do we deal with homelessness?
Bills come and go, and what we need is a context. The context that I would emphasize, first of all, is that there's something profoundly wrong right down to the spirit of the attitude with the not in my backyard approach. I'm in favor of yes in my backyard. Insofar as a bill encourages us to expand housing by allowing, for example, building 2 houses on one large enough site, I'm in favor of that. When it comes to what level these decisions should be made at, principle of the Solidarity Party is called subsidiarity. Wherever possible, decisions should be made at the local level. The difficulty is sometimes at the local level, there's an attitude of close them out, don't let them near me. And when that happens, the state has to exchange for the local narrowness a broader vision. I think as with all the problems we discussed, so much depends upon the spirit of the people. We can't expect politicians to do everything, and too often we get the politicians we deserve because of the narrowness of our spirit.
Okay, thank you. Next up will be Daniel Mercuri. How do you feel about SB 9, SB 10, and the general question of homelessness and California's solutions they're examining at the legislature level?
Well, again, SB 9 and SB 10, I definitely believe that should be vetoed. Things need to be handled more at the local level. The bigger we allow the government to kind of have an overreach, then more things start to get screwed up. So it definitely, what happens up north, as I've learned in, running for office right now, is, what's going on up north is not happening what's down south, and how the economy is affecting in different areas. So I definitely think it should be vetoed. On top of that, some of the other things too, when it comes to our property, the reason why also too that we're struggling with having realtors, or why property is getting so expensive, is we're not under, I think it's Article 13 of the state constitution, for property assessed at fair market value. We don't have fair market value when we have a lot of outside foreign investors that our legislators have allowed investors to come in to buy up a lot of our land. So that sort of forces everybody when they don't really care about what's going on in our economy, and they're just simply out for their own profit, which is fine on them, but it then negatively affects us. And it also mitigates any healthy competition within our state. So that's something that what we need to do is accurately report commercial property as well as private property, so that people can kind of understand what's happening and who they're engaging with. And then also too, the executor can deal with state agencies and some of our realtor packs that are actually just allowing for basically cash buyouts. So it doesn't adhere to the people who actually live here. So we can actually put pressure on them so that there is healthy competition. And then of course, at the same time, like I said before, we can veto some of these bills that the state is coming in to try to overtake, and allow people at the local level to have a hand and a stake in their property. So I think that's some of the best ways that we can mitigate this.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is Dan Kapelowitz. SB 9, SB 10, housing, pro, con, work together, fight against. What's your answer, sir?
I'm pro housing. No, I agree with Doug, actually, to make it easier for people to build housing. I agree with James, to make it easier to build other units on your property. They're sort of lightening the requirements on that. We got to be able to build more housing, and if it might take the state level, because as James pointed out, there's a lot of NIMBYism, and if you leave it to locals, they're going to say, no, we don't want that kind of housing here. Send it to the next county. So you might need leadership on the state level. And I'm all for, there's all these empty houses. We should make it easier for people to adverse possess these places that people in other countries just buying these properties, leave them empty for years and years. Let the homeless live there. And then as governor, I like to also point out, one of my issues with criminal justice, you can do that unilaterally as governor, because you can pardon people that have been in prisons for decades and decades, and you don't need the legislature. So I guess I have the opposite view of Doug on that, because he wants to keep people in longer, even though it's counterproductive. And
actually, you have no evidence to support that, but go ahead.
And you have evidence to keeping people till they're in their 70s when no one even barely commits.
I have evidence that when criminals are in my neighborhood, crime rates go up. And when Newsom releases them, that makes more criminals in my neighborhood.
Well, that's circular logic. If what criminals are in your neighborhood.
Yeah, but it's accurate. It's accurate.
Mr. Ose, please let Mr. Capello finish his response. Nobody interrupted you.
Care. I can bring it on, man. Bring it on. But actually, if I was finished, I'm just saying we can have
your say here.
Right. We have a whole other issue on crime, a whole other debate on crime. I think I have the exact opposite view of Mr. Ossie. I could cite studies too. But as homelessness, when I was, getting signatures, that was probably the number one thing that people were saying needed to be dealt with. And here's my cat. And we got to find homes for cats too. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up will be David Bramante. SB 9, SB 10, housing. Good ideas from the legislature, bad ideas, work with them, oppose them. What do we do to fix the homeless issue? David Bramante.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, again, like all of these issues, it's very complicated. On one side, you've got people on both sides of this. Unfortunately, on these two bills, I'd veto them because I don't think on a state level we need to be regulating what people are doing locally. But having said that, in Los Angeles, ADUs and how easy they are compared to building new construction has been phenomenal. It's been great for homeowners. It's been great for renters. The ability to quickly streamline and have a new unit, converting a garage to a rental in a matter of 4 months for maybe $100,000 to $200,000 is one of the few things that locally we're doing right in Los Angeles. That's good for property owners because property values are going up about $500,000 in Los Angeles when you add an extra unit through the ADU. That's great for renters because now you've got another unit that's just a garage sitting there with a bunch of junk in it. And, that's lightening the load. So I think there's a lot of properties out there that would like to have this option, especially properties. I don't think homes. We don't want apartment buildings right next to a house. And we don't want houses in areas that have weird factories. So we need to look at properties that are duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes that have a detached garage and figure out how on a local level we convert those to ADUs because that's benefiting realtors, that's benefiting the homeowners, and it's benefiting renters. So across the board, that's a win. So ADUs are phenomenal, but I don't think the state should be mandating it across the board and not even, thinking about the different neighborhoods and their preferences.
Thank you. Joel Ventresca, SB 9, SB 10. What is your stance, sir?
One of the leadership roles I've had in the past was I was 4 times elected president of the Coalition for San Francisco Neighborhoods, which at one point at its peak had about 50 residential neighborhood organizations as part of a citywide umbrella organization. And we dealt with a lot of land use issues. Land use, I believe in neighborhood self-determination, but at the same time, we have to couple that with inclusiveness and diversity. And of course, we have to stop any type of discriminatory policies. And that allows neighborhoods to grow, get stronger, and improve quality of life. But neighborhood self-determination is about empowering people where they live and making sure they work together to improve the quality of life. And I support that. Now, these other issues that we're talking about, I support building large-scale multi-unit permanent affordable housing around transit hubs in dense cities. I do support that. I also support a comprehensive homeless program, which would involve providing 24/7 access to addiction and drug and alcohol problems that people are confronting. I believe that if you have a comprehensive program where people are off the streets and moving towards the road to self-sufficiency, then we can solve the homeless crisis, and I would be committed to doing that.
Thank you. We're now going to go to a series of questions from Katie Grimes. These questions are random. There'll be one question per candidate. You will not be asked the same questions. I don't have control over these questions, so there's 7. And there's about 7 candidates, so each one is going to get a different question. You'll have a minute to respond, and then we'll be going to closing statements, and we will start the second panel. To the people of the second panel, we're 5 minutes behind. Not too bad, but I apologize. We're moving close. So, going in reverse order, following Tom Elias' suggestion, we'll start with Joel Ventresca. The question for Joel Ventresca from Katie Grimes. Water is a huge issue. Lack of water is a gigantic issue. Droughts are coming. Climate change is real. In 1 minute, Joel Ventresca, how would you solve the water shortage issue as governor of California?
Well, this is an emerging issue. We are facing possibly an unprecedented drought in the most populous state in the nation. It's affecting all Californians up and down the state, in the cities and in the agricultural areas, in the rural areas. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and figure out what we need to conserve water as much as possible. And wherever water is being used for things that we can put on hold, like swimming pools and watering your lawn, we may have to forego that for the foreseeable future. Global warming is creating all these consequences, and California needs to address global warming, which is part of the drought. And we need to make sure that we have equity in what we do in terms of regulating water usage. And a lot of it can be voluntary, a lot of it can be mandatory, but we need to get the stakeholders together and solve the problem together.
Thank you. Next question for David Bramante. In 1 minute, sir. How would you solve the fact that energy costs are going up and it is a burden for middle and lower income people, especially those who live in hot areas and rely on air conditioning? How do we solve the energy crisis? California imports a lot of its energy and the price of energy is only going up. What would you do as governor to make sure that Californians have affordable energy? David Bramante in 1 minute.
Well, I think just touching on what Joel said, I think that it's another embarrassment for Californians that we have one of the largest pools of water literally on our border called the Pacific Ocean, and we can't figure out how to get water. So, and rather than being restrictive, we need to be creative. We're home to Silicon Valley. With affordability, again, rather than being restrictive, we need to be creative and we need to lighten the load for people. So I don't think it's through handouts. I don't think it's through restriction. I think that what we need to do is just ease up and let people keep more of the money that they make and encourage them to make money. So we need to get rid of, and I have proposed this, it's on my website, davidbramante.com. We need to get rid of sales tax. We need to get rid of gas tax. And we can have sunset clauses. So in 5 years, possibly they come back. But we need to start going through and slashing taxes, especially when Governor Newsom's running around saying we have a surplus of $75 billion. It's time to give the money back.
Thank you. Next question is for Dan Kapelovitz. Recently, there seems to be a spike in crime. If it's true, what would you do about that? How would you handle, Dan Kapelovitz, the supposed spike in petty theft going across California these days as you took over as governor? In 1 minute, sir.
All right, well, first of all, I don't know, like you said, it's supposed. Now, of course, the economies or the people, it's opened up. So, of course, there's more people out. So there wasn't a lot of crime during the first few months of COVID. But we need to get to the root of the problem. Why are people doing petty thefts? We need to help the economy, help people make a living wage. We got to have a real minimum wage, let people actually support themselves with jobs. We need to deal with drug addiction as a drug addiction problem, not as a crime problem. We shouldn't criminalize homelessness. That's a homeless problem, not a crime problem. That's what we need to do. And we need to not just throw people in prison. When they get out after, they're worse than when they were before. That's not the way to help people. We need to really deal with mental health, drugs, and things that shouldn't even be criminalized.
Thank you. Daniel Mirchuri. California is going into wildfire season. And yet again, we're not going to have the amount of federal firefighters that we need. And we're experiencing wildfires that are beyond anything recorded in the last 150 years of California history. As California governor, given bigger wildfires than anything we've ever seen and less federal assistance this year, how would you deal with the wildfires as governor? In 1 minute, sir.
Well, one of the first things that we need to do is allow California Forest Management to do their job. So we need to remove the environmentalist groups that are preventing a lot of our forestry to do what they do best, and that is to thin it out, that is to clean up the mess prior from a previous, fire. And one of the other things too that I think we're not really thinking about is we always tend to use as a military individual. I was a Navy man, so everybody in the Navy, we were all firefighters. So when you're out in the middle of the ocean, everybody was a firefighter. We have military that we've used when the fire happens, but we can also use them in a humanitarian need here at the state level with the National Guard, Air National Guard to help year round. On top of that, we also have a volunteer program. There are a lot of people who are also veterans that are also firefighters that we don't give tax incentives because the firefighting program has diminished. The volunteer program has diminished because it's a dangerous job. So why aren't we expanding that to people who want to do it with tax incentives to expand on the program? So these are a few simple things that we can do that really don't cost the state any money.
Thank you. Professor Hannig, housing costs are through the roof, and yet there seems to be no way of solving it. If you were governor, Professor, how would you make housing affordable for many Californians who are effectively being priced out and forced to leave California? Professor Hannig, in 1 minute.
I think that more housing needs to be built, and it needs to have fewer restrictions. The process of building new homes needs to have fewer restrictions. I was amazed when I was gathering signatures for this candidacy. My neighbor said, well, if we build more houses, my house won't be worth as much as it was before. Now, as long as we have that attitude, nothing is going to work in terms of housing. We definitely need to build and build and build, but people won't do it unless they have a change of heart.
Thank you. Last question goes to Doug Ossie. Doug Ossie, California schools have persistently performed not very well, according to national averages. Recently, according to some estimates, California schools perform as well as schools in Mississippi, or the worst effectively in all of America. What would you do as governor to handle and fix this long-running, seemingly chronic issue of poor performing public schools in California? Doug Ossie, in 1 minute, sir.
Great question. This is the heart of everyday life in California for families of 6 million K-12 kids in public school. We need to give parents choice as to where their kid goes to school. If the school in their neighborhood is performing well, the parent can take that kid to that school and stay right there. If the school in their neighborhood isn't performing well, we need to give parents the right to take their child to another school. We'll know by the end of the first week of this program which schools are performing well and which ones aren't. And then we need to let state funding follow that child wherever the parent decides that child should attend. And then we need to have the local school board be the final decision maker about what the curriculum is that child is being taught. That's how you get parents to buy into public education. You make them an integral part of the process by giving them the authority to control where their kid goes. You give them the money to fund the education, and you let the people they vote for directly decide what it is those children are being taught. This is the path we need to go. This is the path we are not on today, but it will be the path we're on when I'm governor.
Thank you. We're going to go to closing statements now. You will each have 1 minute. Please explain in your closing statement how you are better than everyone else people saw today, why your ideas are better, while your leadership character is better. How come you're the best option here for everyone? Please explain that in 1 minute. We're going to go in reverse order following Tom Elias's format, and the first person up will be Doug Ose. Doug Ossie. I apologize. Doug Ossie. In 1 minute, why are you the best candidate, and why are you better than all of the other candidates? Your closing statement, sir, in 1 minute.
So first of all, I want to note that in the presentation here, we have disproven Governor Newsom's assertion that the Democratic Party is united behind his defense of the recall. I got 2 participants here. You're going to have more. So let's just put that to bed. The reason, what I bring to the table is experience in the real world. My wife and I have raised kids here. We run businesses here. This is where we live. This is not theoretical for me. I don't live in a bubble. I don't have 24/7 protection like legislators and people like that. The problems that we're dealing with, I have proposed specific solutions for. Go to my website, OSEFORCalifornia.com, OSEFOR California.com. Follow me on Twitter, @Doug Ossie. We've got problems in this state. I've proposed specific solutions for them. Most everybody else is just talking about generalities and banalities. Demand specific proposals.
Thank you, sir.
For your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Hannick, in 1 minute, why are you better than the other candidates today? Why should voters consider you to be the top candidate, in your opinion, sir? In 1 minute, Professor Hannick.
I think I'm tied for better with some people on some issues. I think my old friend Dan is dead right about prisons, and I think Doug is just absolutely right on about school vouchers. I am better, however, in that I have a comprehensive vision. Particulars, well, anybody can propose a particular, but what particular are we supposed to propose? American Solidarity Party bases all its judgments on the common good. We understand the common good to include everyone. And first of all, we look for those who are most at risk. And in this case, at this time, it's the unborn and the elderly. We're also looking to the common good in terms of the principle of subsidiarity, work from the ground up. We also look to the common good in terms of the principle of economic democracy. The wider ownership can be, especially home ownership, the better off our state will be.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Daniel Mercuri. Daniel Mercuri, why are you the best candidate here? Why are you better than the other candidates? How did they get it wrong? How do you see it better? Daniel Mercuri, in 1 minute, sir.
Well, one of the biggest things I think that points things into my favor is that I'm not blind to the fact that right now we have a trifecta blue state. So while we're sitting here having an amazing discourse, and I want to thank everybody for all of your ideas and differences of opinion, it clearly shows that Gavin is clearly sitting on his hands, but so is the state legislature. Everybody is sitting on their hands. And in a trifecta blue state, all these policies aren't going to matter. When a trifecta blue state, we have to figure out what we're going to do to clean house. And I don't hear anybody talking about what we're going to do to clean house. I don't hear talk about anybody about what we're going to do to leverage, 2022 at the general election to get these reprobates out of office. And right now, I feel like I'm the only one who is a veteran who understands that we are, in my personal opinion, we are at war. We have never seen the world right now attack its people with legislation because they're changing the language to change perceptions, to pass the bills that they want to engage in, which is they want to engage in their perversions without remorse, without accountability. And I'm the only one that right now is willing to go toe to toe and bring the fight to them. That is what we need. And this is how we're going to get it done. After that, put somebody else in. But I want a clean house.
Thank you. Dan Kapelovitz.
Yes.
Why are you the best candidate here? Why are your visions and understanding better and more insightful and displaying greater wisdom than the other candidates? Why should candidate voters pick you as the next governor? Dan Kapelovitz, in 1 minute.
Well, just like Mr. Ossie, I have a lot of real life experience, just as much as all these people do. He may have specific plans, but if they're bad, who cares how specific they are? Now, I agree with Jim. I'm against the death penalty, but I am for people's choice in terms of abortion and assisted suicide. I know if we disagree on that, but I think the people of California are pretty, as he said, they're a trifecta blue state. People are really pretty much more progressive than Republican. That's why I'm against this recall. It's just a way for the Republicans trying to sneak in with the policies that aren't progressive, just pro-corporation, anti-freedom, throw everybody away in prison, especially if they're not white. And I'm the guy, I wanted to change the whole structure with the ranked voting system. That could actually change everything in the future if people aren't afraid to vote third party. And I just believe if you vote yes, or if the recall goes through, I'm the guy to vote for. I'm against.
Thank you. David Bramante. Make sure you're unmuted. David Bramante, why are you the best candidate in comparison to all of the other candidates? And all of you candidates are great, but why should a voter pick you over everyone else? David Bramante.
Thanks again, Marcus. There's a lot of candidates made the ballot. There's a few that didn't, and there's one in particular that, used the legal system to weasel back in. But for the few of us that were on the streets, that were talking to voters and getting nomination votes, which is what I did. I didn't hire a staff to do it. I didn't have, friends or family. I went to Marina Del Rey in Los Angeles, one of the most liberal places you can go to as a Republican, and I got signatures to run as a Republican for California. So, and the way that I did that was I didn't fixate on my party affiliation. I fixated on the policies, and I looked people in the eyes and I asked them what's going on, because I was fed up. I am fed up. I am embarrassed. A lot of people have left the state. People think it's anecdotal, but I know people that are leaving or considering leaving. It's real. California used to be the place everybody wanted to go to, and we need to get that magic back. It's here. California is phenomenal. We have so many resources and amazing people. We just have to tap back into it and stop with the party lines and just look each other in the eye and have these conversations. So thank you guys for being involved, and thanks for talking to me.
Last up, Joel Ventresca. Joel Ventresca, you have a lot of experience. You're the top Democrat in the race. Why should people pick you over everyone else in 1 minute? Candidate Ventresca.
New transformational leadership and fundamental change is coming. I am an incorruptible, independent Bernie-crat Democrat. As a prominent 99% public interest game changer Democrat who received 111,000 votes in San Francisco elections, I will govern as America's most effective progressive governor. I'm interested in working on restoring, reinventing, and reimagining the golden California dream. I'm interested in advancing advances in things like creating a just, livable, and flourishing California for all, reversing growing economic inequality, and rejuvenating inclusive participatory democracy. I have a 25-point platform. Please go to joelventresca.com. If you support that platform, vote for me, urge your friends to vote for me.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to boot all the candidates from the studio. I think you're all beautiful people. I will send you an email of this recording. Tom, please stay. We will allow the next fleet of candidates in. I understand some candidates were already trying to get in. We're going to end this first panel here. Thank you all for being here. I will email you a copy. You're now booted from the studio, but with love.
Marcus and Tom.
Appreciation.
Marcus, thank you very much. And you know that I'm not able to stay for the next round. That we discussed earlier. So I'm going to beg off, but I really appreciate the opportunity, and this was quite enjoyable. Thank you very much, and thank you to the candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, Kevin.
Good morning, Marcus.
Hey, thank you all for being here. Let's give it about 5 minutes. I know some candidates were trying to go in. I am, Daniel Watts is here. Perfect. Kevin?
Good morning, Marcus.
Hey. Good morning. Good morning, Daniel. Good morning, Jacqueline. Good morning, Kevin. I think the other candidates for the second panel are going to just come on in. I want to give them like 2 or 3 minutes. I think they were already watching it. Let me call David Hilberg. And I got Holly Batty's name wrong. Holly, I saw that. Let me check out your email, and I will fix that right now. David, I will be contacting you. We will start. We're live, but we're not starting. We're live, but we're not starting. Live, but we'll start in about 5 minutes. So just so that you know, you're on the video. Give me 1 second. We'll start in about 5 minutes. You are live, but we're not starting at this minute. I will explain the rules and the format and everything to you. I just need to call 3 candidates and let them know that the studio's open. We're 15 minutes behind. I apologize to each candidate for that. I apologize. 1 second, I'll be right back. David Hilberger, Hilberg, I apologize. I accidentally booted you from the studio because I was trying to get rid of the other candidates. Please come back. That was a mistake on my part. I didn't mean to do that. I had to get rid of nine people to allow more people into the studio. David Hilberg, please come back. Holly, I got your email and I am correcting your name now. Give me 1 second to do that. We'll be starting. Holly L. Holly, I have reprinted your name the way that you sent me an email. Holly L. Baade. We are waiting on Diego Martinez, and David Hilberg was here. I accidentally booted him. Let me email him again. One second.
So where are you from? Other guy who's on the video feed?
Me?
Oh, somebody's you're muted.
I said I'll chime in.
Hello.
Where are you?
I'm
Me?
in Napa.
Oh,
Napa. Cool.
And
I'm
you?
in Vista, North San Diego County.
Cool. Okay.
And you are Jacqueline McGowan?
I am.
I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Daniel. I'm excited. Let's go.
One second. I just got to get a hold of David Hilberg. I shouldn't have. I accidentally booted him, and I felt horrible.
Works.
And this other guy that's on there, is this one of the Kevins? Are you a Kevin, sir, with the red curtain in the background?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Call.
Kevin Call.
Yeah, Kevin Kishore Call, actually. 3 Ks
Nice to
on
meet you.
the name.
Where are you?
Where am I from?
Yeah, well, what city are you in right now?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Okay, cool.
LA's own Kevin Call.
Yeah, there are a lot of Kevins running this year, and Daniels. Lots of Kevins and Daniels.
Five Kevins are running, but I'm only KKK, the good KKK.
Okay, Jesus. I hope that's not on your ballot statement.
No, it's not there. It's not there. But somebody said, you know what? Your name is KKK from India, you know. I'm Indo-American, so.
Your ballot statement is just not that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there he is. Perfect. David Hilberg?
Yes, sir.
I apologize, sir. I did not mean to boot you from the studio.
Oh, that's okay.
My personal apology. Okay, everybody's here except for Diego Martinez. We'll go ahead and get started. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to show a commercial, and then we'll come back. I will introduce all of you. I will introduce the format, and then we'll get started. So give me 1 second. We're going to go to commercial. We'll come out, and we'll get started with the debate.
Okay, I'm black.
It's the California Recall Debate. Hosted by Yes California.
Thank you all for being here. That was Bill Hensley, Broadway musical star. Yes, California was able to contract him to do a special ditty for these things. We're very proud to have 30-year Broadway music star veteran Bill Hensley doing our jingle for this recall debate. Well, we have a great show today. We already did a panel of debate. Here's the second panel of debate. These are the candidates that you will see debate today. Holly, I hope that I corrected your name correctly. I got your email. I spelled it the way that I saw it in the email. I hope that's accurate.
Yes, Holly Beatty.
Okay, Holly Beatty. The names here have been reordered in a random format from random.org. We used a computer program from a Swedish scientist developed in the late 1980s. The order of names is completely random. I, as moderator, had no influence over it. The questions will appear in this format. Now, the format of the debate is going to be like this. There's going to be an introduction by me. I will explain the debate, the candidates, and a little bit about where the questions are coming from. We will have the first question, which was proposed by Tom Elias. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer that question, a minute and a half. There will be a second question from Tom Elias. You will have an additional minute and a half to answer that. Finally, we will go to a random list of questions from Katie Grimes of California Globe, and you will have a minute to answer that, followed by a minute closing statement. So each of you is going to have 2 minutes of an introductory statement. Then we're going to go to the first question. You'll have a minute and a half per question. There will be a second question. You'll have a minute and a half. There will be a third question. You'll have 1 minute, and then you have a final closing statement. Now, we are encouraging all candidates to address your questions to each other and to explain to the voters why you're the best candidate. Also, we will be asking you all to please address the question. Sometimes candidates hear a question and they choose not to answer and give a campaign statement. We will be calling you out if you do that. No offense. So please answer the questions and please point out repeatedly why you're the best candidate compared to all of the other options the voters are hearing today. Please be respectful, no name calling, no meanness, but a little bit of, you know, I'm the best candidate here and here's why my ideas are the most richest would be okay. Voters have to make a decision. Additionally, if you're governor of California, you'll have to be able to fight for your ideas against hundreds of other people who have different ideas. Voters will need to see that you have what it takes to stand for your ideas. So, introduction from me, candidate introductory statement for 2 minutes. First question, minute and a half. Second question, minute and a half. Third question, 1 minute. We're going to go to candidate introductory statements now. But first, I need to mention the first 2 questions are from Tom Elias. Tom Elias is the editor of California Focus. He is a 40-year veteran of the California policy discussions. He, in fact, started the 2003 recall election with his op-ed. He's received 3 Pulitzer Prize nominations and 3 awards from different newspaper organizations. He additionally has 2.2 million readers who follow his 90 publications published every 2 weeks. Katie Grimes is the editor of California Globe, and she will also be asking questions. So 2 different newspaper editors, questions coming directly from them, very high profile, and we will be feeding your answers back to them. So the first thing we're going to do is candidate introductions in this order. So the first up is David Hilberg. David Hilberg, in 2 minutes and no more than 2 minutes, how would you introduce yourself to the California voters and why you're the best candidate? David Hilberg.
Well, I'm an aircraft mechanic that's been working in the industry for over 45 years, worked with the LA County Sheriff's Department, Border Patrol, and various individuals in aviation. As an A&P mechanic and IA with an inspection authorization and a pilot, I have to assess and determine problems in my industry, whether it's finding different fault in different systems, inspection of the aircraft as a whole. I find that because an A&P is such a rounded, diverse education, that they're able to look and see problems that a lot of people don't see. I look at California, and for the past over 35 years, they've had basically run of the mill of their own policies and such that have harmed Californians and the nation as a whole. I see that our governments have not been aligned themselves to what our constitutions say for a very long time. In the past 15 and 20 years, our actual legislature has been enacting what I call scorched earth policies to enrich themselves. So all I can say is there's no best person for the job, because you have 1 year to get the job done. And the only way to do that is to enforce law upon our own politicians. And if you read the California Constitution, the governor is the chief law enforcement officer of the state. And for the many years that they've had their own way, they've gone off the rails. They've gone off the rails so far, it'll take the Hubble telescope to find out where they're at. And so with that, my name's David Hilberg. I have no emails or anything. I just read my ballot statement, and that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you. I'm going to give a 10-second warning. When you see the two hands up, that means you have 10 seconds, time to wrap it up. But I will have to mute you if I have to. Next up is going to be Kevin Call. Kevin Call, in 2 minutes, how would you introduce yourself to voters as to why you're the top candidate in this race, sir? Kevin Call, in 2 minutes.
Good morning, Marcus. Thank you very much. And Tom and Katie, we really appreciate your experience, and we really appreciate accepting us and giving us an opportunity to let the viewers have our views. I grew up in India. I spent 30 years in India, and then last 30 years in the United States in Los Angeles. I'm Los Angeles own, which relates to 55% of the votes of California comes out of Los Angeles. I see no representation from Los Angeles in the federal government for the last couple of years. Everybody comes from the Bay Area, and because of the support of the social media organizations and other Silicon Valley, and the people of Los Angeles are suffering for the last many years. So I took the opportunity, and the second reason I am running as the governor of California, I think a time has come in America for people to have 80% of the politicians that are there out there in the United States and in India come from the attorney background. And in India, the attorneys wear a black coat, and the doctors wear a white coat. So I thought, why should a doctor wear a white coat and an attorney wear a black coat? So attorneys in politics, because they are good talkers and they only talk, but engineers are not encouraged to get into politics. The reason why China became China in 40 years when they do not even speak English is because 80% of the politicians in China are engineers. So as an engineer, I took the onus of responsibility to fix all problems of California. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. Next up will be Daniel Watts. Daniel Watts, I believe you were at the 2003 recall election, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
Okay. I'm not endorsing Daniel Watts as a candidate. I'm just pointing out that he was here. And we love having continuity because Tom Elias was at the 2003 recall and he started it, right? And then you were a candidate in 2003. We've also had about 1/4 of all declared candidates participate in the Yes California debates, and 1/4 of all ballot qualified candidates participate in debate. Nobody has had more candidates with more debates representing 5 different parties than Yes California. We're proud to do that. Daniel Watts, in 2 minutes,
Open it.
why are you the best candidate for governor? Why should voters choose you over 40 other people, sir? Daniel Watts, in 2 minutes.
Thanks, Marcus. So my name is Daniel Watts. I'm a free speech lawyer. I live in San Diego, and my platform has two parts: free speech, free college, and that's it. I ran for governor in the 2003 recall election against Arnold Schwarzenegger on the one-issue platform of lower student fees. That year, tuition had gone up 30% in the state of California. And since then, it's only gotten worse over the last 18 years. I was 20 years old when I ran the first time. I'm 38 now. I've been a free speech lawyer for 10 years, and I've seen the price of college skyrocket in California. We have the ability to make college free for 1/10 of the budget surplus this year. 1/10 of that surplus could make every UC and CSU in the state of California 100% tuition free, and we should do it. But that comes to my second point of my platform. We should only do it for those colleges that obey the First Amendment. UC San Diego, over the last 5 years, spent $800,000 of public money trying to fight a student newspaper, trying to silence it, trying to prevent it from publishing on campus. They lost. The ACLU sued UC San Diego along with those students, but UC San Diego, frustratingly, decided to keep fighting against the First Amendment. That should never happen in the state of California. And if I were governor, I would make it so that it doesn't happen. I would initiate executive orders directing attorneys, the attorney general and also the governor's attorneys, to review the student conduct code at every college in California. Those that comply with the First Amendment or fix their student conduct code so that they do become tuition free. The others need to obey the Constitution anyway. But once they do, those colleges also get tuition free. Now, there's a database called at thefire.org. You can look up and see which colleges are obeying the First Amendment and which are not. But my platform as governor, just these two things: free college, free speech. A vote for me is a vote to say that those things matter. I have no delusions about actually winning this election. The governor's not going to be recalled. It's crazy to think that he is, but I am running for these issues, to make these issues important to whoever is going to be the next governor. So please vote for Daniel Watts for free speech, free college. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be John Drake. John, why are you the best candidate in 2 minutes, sir?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sweet. All right, so I'm a Zoomer. I am the next generation. So every policy that is going to be passed, every policy that is going to be enacted within the state of California is going to affect my generation and the generation coming after me. I'm sick and tired of multimillionaires who are like in their 70s and 80s or in their 50s trying to make decisions that they won't live long enough to reap the ramifications of. And so I think if you would just have a voice in there saying, hey, look, you're not going to live to deal with the consequences of this. I am. Let's slow down the train and let's think about this. My entire platform addresses the three main issues that affect my generation: affordable housing, affordable education, and affordable healthcare. What my campaign wants to do is reinvest from failed infrastructure projects, reinvest from failed institutions, and put into those into housing, education, and healthcare the funds necessary for things to become affordable. Millennials, the generation right after me, they are the largest workforce in American history. They control 5% of the wealth. How in the world did we go from a society in which you could work 2 minimum wage jobs, afford a house, and take vacations every now and then, to now owning a house is a luxury? Now paying rent is your entire life's work. That is what my campaign aims to address. It is with common sense. My campaign wants to address these issues with common sense and real solutions that aren't too high and too aspired to try and reach. It is the biggest issue we are dealing with in California is lack of affordability, and so many things tie into that. It's crime, mental health, education, not having the funds necessary for the next generation to be able to survive and move on and be able to build wealth and build generational prosperity. We need to address that, and the way we address
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Getting rid of old people.
Okay, I apologize. I'm going to be a stickler for time just because we have many candidates, and it also helps you. So the way that voters like, nobody watches an hour debate. I miss the days of Walter Cronkite too, but people today like short little segments, and so we've broken up your responses so that people will accept them better. We're doing these things so that people will watch this video now, they'll watch it over the next 2 months, and they're going to see you and go, wow, that was nice to hear what that person was about in a minute. That's the way voters typically are. We're preparing it so that you look the best that you can, and voters make the decision that they want. Next up will be Ms. McGowan, Jackie McGowan. Thank you for being here. Jackie McGowan, why are you the top contender? What do you bring to the table? Why should people choose you versus
Hi, Marcus.
40 other people?
Hello, Marcus. Thank you for having me. And I want to thank Tom and Katie for coming up with the questions here today. My name is Jackie McGowan, and I am beginning my platform on a reform cannabis policy platform. Although I will be expanding into other issues. I'm running as a moderate Democrat. I'm also pro-gun. I'm a former Wall Street stockbroker of 18 years, and I have been a cannabis policy and licensing expert for the past 7. I believe that I am going to speak to the hearts and minds of voters today and throughout this campaign. And I think that I'm going to win this because I have something that that no one else on this ticket does. And that is a voter base of 8 million people that voted to legalize cannabis for adult use 5 years ago, who are still waiting for their will to be implemented. And there is a suicide a week right now in the licensed cannabis industry due to the overregulation and overtaxation, which has caused the illicit market to thrive, threatening public safety of every Californian. And I have a very solid plan on how I would address that immediately upon taking office. And I am, hyper focused on cannabis right now, just because it's been tossed aside and ignored for too long. And I am not going to accept any more deaths in the industry, not on my watch. And I believe that I will be able to speak to all small business owners and find where I can help all small business owners and not just cannabis business owners. I believe that overregulation and overtaxation are causing a death by 1,000 cuts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Holly Batty. Did I say that right, Holly?
Almost. Holly Beatty.
Holly Beatty. Holly Beatty. Holly Beatty. Holly Beatty. Miss Beatty,
Yes.
in 2 minutes, why should voters choose you out of 40 candidates representing many views to run this economy and this basically virtual nation state, as the governor calls it currently, called California? Holly Beatty.
Thank you, Marcus, for 2 minutes of being able to share all of that. The first thing I would like to say is that I do not agree with our current governor that this is a virtual state. I believe that while we connect with each other in a virtual way, both from our joy and also from our necessity, we are also a community that needs each other, that actually needs physical touch and family gatherings and the capacity to hold and see, not just with our eyes and our intellect, but with our hearts. And also that we need our nature, our actual geography, that we don't live in a virtual world. We live in a real world with trees and mountains and oceans and rivers. So I would just like to say at the very outset that one thing that distinguishes me as a governor candidate from our current governor is that I still see that we are real people and not living in a virtual world. I think that's a very important distinction to make. I have experienced so many lifetimes in this lifetime. I have a master's in public administration. I went to the University of Southern California State Capital Program, where I studied leadership in uncertain environments, and I studied policy that has run the gamut for the last 100 years in our state. I also have been a newspaper reporter for the Sacramento Bee right out of school. And I've been a single mom who's moved from welfare to being a successful entrepreneur. And I know what it takes to make creative solutions in times of uncertainty. Thank you so much, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the first question from reporter Tom Elias, 3-time Pulitzer nominee, and the reporter who started the 2003 recall election. We're going to go, we're going to follow the order that Tom suggested for the previous debate, trying to make this panel line up with the previous one. So we're going to go in reverse order, and then we'll flip it each time. So they're going to get called in a certain order. We'll do the opposite of that. And we'll troll back and forth. It'll make sense. The first question is to all the candidates from Tom Elias. What are the top 3 issues in California that we need to focus on, and how would you solve them? What are the top 3 issues in California that we should be focused on definitively, and how would you solve them? Additionally, I'd like to point out candidates are asked to address your questions, pointing out how you have the best answers than anybody. Additionally, we will be asking candidates to please answer the question. Some candidates don't answer the question and just give a campaign statement. We will be calling you out if you don't answer the question. We did in the first panel. Don't mean to, but we will. So please answer the question, and please point out how your answers are better than anyone else's. The first person up is Holly Beatty with 1.5 minutes. What are the top 3 issues in California, and how would you solve them? Holly Beatty, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you so much. There are so many issues in California right now that we are all facing. The first one for me on my list is the economy. The second is education. And the third one is safety, which really also covers healthcare, housing, crime, and the criminal justice system. So let's kind of work reverse with safety, healthcare. Everybody needs access to healthcare, especially trauma care. So if there's broken bones or there's a car accident of any kind, we should have no compulsion whatsoever to allow people to get the services that they need. And also, we should not force people to have services that they do not need. Also, housing. Yes, I am not in favor of the current legislation, which is forcing local governments to build beyond their capacities geographically and also their resources, natural environmental resources like water. So SB 9 and 10, that would be a veto for me. With criminal justice, I definitely see letting criminals out of incarceration early as affecting our general safety, but I also see that there are way too many people incarcerated, and that is a capacity the governor has to release nonviolent criminals. I would definitely look at that. For education, I would like to see more local autonomy and curriculum decisions as a beginning point. And with the economy, it's just time to open it up, folks. It's time to get back to work and time to support those folks who have been forced out of business for so long. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Jackie McGowan. Jackie McGowan, as a candidate, what are the top 3 issues that everyone in California should be listening to, focused on, and how would you lead us, a population of 40 million people, to resolve those issues? Jackie McGowan.
So issue number 1 for me that I think everyone today has overlooked is pandemic and economic stress. And I don't think that women have been given enough credit for what they endured during the pandemic. They suddenly had 3 jobs. They brought their work home. They had to maintain their home, and they had to homeschool their children, and while paying taxes, for schools. And so I would like to see, families get credit on their tax returns for schools that they didn't use. Women really are the unsung heroes of the time during the pandemic, and if I become governor, I will do my best to alleviate some of their stress and take some of the weight off their shoulders. Issue number 2 is overregulation in general. Overregulation is driving business out of the state. It has caused a mass exodus, and that exodus is continuing. Overregulation, it hurts small businesses the most. And small businesses are the economic engine of our state. And we need to open the economy up. I totally agree. And we need to give them everything that they need and cut the red tape, give them the breathing room that they need to survive. The illicit market, the illicit cannabis market is thriving right now under Newsom, after Newsom took cannabis money, donations to get elected, and he took our issue, and then never passed a favorable bill since he's been in office, and has in fact stopped taking our calls pretty much. Our industry deserves respect. Our industry was not given loans or any bailouts or any relief whatsoever, while their costs to produce went up and their revenue went down. And I would lower the taxes immediately on cannabis in order to create economic parity between the legal and the illicit market. Thank you.
Thank you. John Drake.
I think the three biggest issues are affordability, climate, and I just forgot the other one. Affordability, climate, and slipped my mind.
Well, tell us how you're going to solve those first two.
Okay. So affordability, that encompasses many things. That encompasses education, healthcare, and housing. We have to defund failed projects like the speed rail, which is over $100 billion at this point. Take those funds and reinvest into real community solutions that would actually improve the lives of other people. So I'm actually a fan of SB 9 and 10. I think it's the federal government. I think it's the state government's job at this point, because local communities are not taking proper action. Like Los Angeles hasn't taken any action. San Francisco is trying, but then getting nowhere with it because of all the hurdles. So I think the state government just needs to take over. When it comes to the climate, we have the drought, we have wildfires, and these are all symptoms of climate change as a larger issue. They're going to get worse until we address climate change on an effective level. And then the other one is, I was prepared for it, which is so sad. Oh my God. Affordability, climate, and you know what? Crime and crime and safety. I'll just say that. Crime and safety, because obviously crime has increased. I found it. COVID. It was COVID relief. There we go. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm usually not this dense. COVID relief. All right. I want to create a California Emergency Relief Fund where 10% of all people's taxes are collected and put into basically a savings bond, so that when another pandemic happens again, you can actually then pull that money out. It's untouched, and it can re-stimulate the economy, so that we don't have the issue of businesses going under, the economy going flat. During another issue like this happening again. I think that's a very important thing to address. And I think part of the charter within the California Emergency Relief Fund would be that if government tells businesses they cannot be open and have their businesses collecting money, the government then cannot retroactively then say, oh, now you also have to pay taxes even though you're making no money. Because that's one reason why so many businesses went under. They were still forced to pay taxes when they were not making any money. There we go. Sorry, everyone.
Thank you. Next up will be Daniel Watts. Daniel Watts, in a minute and a half, what are the top three issues for everyone here to be focused on, and how will you fix those issues as governor of 40 million people? Daniel Watts.
Sure. Free speech, free college, and free speech again. Those are the three most important issues that I think that I want to focus on. But first, I want to say to Mr. Drake, I was on. I understand the forgetting things when you're doing it, and I want to say it's okay. When I was a college student running for governor earlier that year, I was on Wheel of Fortune, and the final puzzle was enjoy the show, but everything was there except for the J and the Y. And I still didn't get it. And it is hilarious, and you can find it on YouTube. But that's what happened to me when I ran for governor. So you're okay. Keep going. Just plow through. You're fine. So free speech, free college, free speech. We have a free speech crisis in California. Earlier or last year, there was a candidate for Oceanside City Council who sued her own campaign workers for telling the San Diego Union Tribune newspaper that she didn't pay their wages. She tried to sue them to pummel them into submission. I represented one of those workers. I filed an anti-slap motion to strike, and I stopped that lawsuit, which was designed to hurt other people's free speech. And most of the campaign workers caved and they settled because litigation is so incredibly expensive when someone files a frivolous, meritless lawsuit against you. But we have this law. It's called the anti-SLAPP statute, and it's designed to protect people against those kinds of frivolous lawsuits. But the courts, sometimes the courts whittle away at the law. Sometimes they expand it, but more recently they've been narrowing it. They've been constraining it. And if I were governor, I would advocate for an expansion of the anti-SLAPP law to protect people's free speech and not to curtail it. And then I see I'm almost out of time, but free college, free speech again. Daniel Watts for governor.
I have to point out that Daniel Watts, although he admitted it, did not address all of the question. He did 2 out of 3. I said we were going to point it out. I'm just following the rules. So next up will be Kevin Call. Kevin, let me unmute you. Kevin Call, in a minute and a half, what are the top?
Thanks, Marcus, and thanks, Tom. This is a good question you guys asked. 3 most important issues of the state of California will be, for me, lack of women empowerment, number 1. Lack of student empowerment, number 2. A lack of grants for business owners after the pandemic, which I think is over. And my plan is to give $1 million per household. $1 million, take it to the bank, please. Per household. 15 million households will get $1 million each in my watch as the governor of California. For that $1 million can take care of all the issues that we talk about, and we can keep talking about the issues whole day, but $1 million will save California from the present crisis that we are all facing without credit checks. No credit checks, $1 million per household, fix your problems and re-energize California as a state. Number 2, lack of women empowerment. Only 8% of women of California are empowered as of date. I want that to go above 50% because women are the one who saved all the lives of Californians in the last 1.5 years. So they need to be empowered with entrepreneurships, training. They need to be empowered with grants. They need to be empowered with no taxes for them for the next 5 years under my watch. And the last but not the least of the students, I got my own 5 boys, and I want all students to come out with no debts when they come out of college in the job market. And they need to be having entrepreneurship training too before they come out of college. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up will be David Hilberg. David Hilberg, you are unmuted. How would you define the top 3 issues here, and what would you do to solve them, whether they're chronic issues or not? David Hilberg.
A lot of the main issues have been skipped over and even ignored. One is public corruption. It goes from the cities all the way up to the top levels of our government. Everyone says, oh, we had this pandemic, we had this problem and that. My personal choices in life, along with my family's, we have enough money to survive the pandemic when we had to. We worked when we could, and we didn't rely on government. Right now, the government has been manipulating everyone and everything to our disadvantage to have government come back to what it should be, which is a representation of the people. The second one is citizen apathy. In California, just like the Republican Party did way back when, said, we can't have a candidate come and win an election, yet he won't win. So they stopped supporting any candidate that was opposing the Democrats. They took power, and look what has got us. These are years and years of problems. It's not going to take a year or 2 or 3 elections to get rid of it. It's going to take a lifetime for most of us. Other thing is social responsibility. Are you taking care of your family, or your friends, or your neighbors? Are you helping them out? Are you getting socially involved? Because when I was a kid, we knew all our neighbors. We knew everyone down the streets. We knew everyone in school. We knew everybody in our business. How many people can say, I know everybody in business right now, or know all my friends? You can't. Everybody's locked up in a little room or in a little cubicle, playing with their iPhones, manipulated into schools that don't really teach people how to learn. So the only thing I can say is we all have to work together, because there is no way that we can rely on a government that has proven to be harmful to its citizens.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the next question. You will have a minute and a half. This question also comes from Tom Elias. We're going to go in reverse order. So we're going to start with David Hilberg and then go to Kevin Call. It'll be in reverse order. I'll call you out. So the next question by columnist Tom Elias, who started the 2003 recall election, to the first panel is SB 9 and SB 10. The California government is looking at these bills to solve the homeless crisis. If you were governor, do you support these bills? How would you handle the homeless crisis? Do you agree with the general direction of Sacramento, or do you disagree? As governor, you're going to have to stand for your opinions. Sometimes that will be working against the legislature, and sometimes that will be working for them. What is your opinion on SB 9, SB 10, how the legislature is handling homelessness, and in general, how would you handle homelessness? And do you generally agree with the legislature's direction or not? We're going to go to the first person, will be David Hilberg, to a minute and a half.
Yes, I haven't read either of those bills, but I do know that this problem has started in its roots way back when the California legislature got rid of their sanitariums and mental hospitals. And the Democrats said they were going to bring in clinics. Well, those clinics never evolved. And over the years, a lot of people come to California, and one of the previous ones said, I'll make California the best welfare state in the nation. So the problem is multi-generational. We used to call them hobos in the old days. Now we have mentally ill, people who don't want to work, drug-addicted people that are refusing treatment because they want that lifestyle of freedom to take their drugs. Well, I would basically say those who have mental conditions that are unable to care for themselves, have them adjudicated, have them taken care of. Those who are criminals, pick them up off the streets, throw them back in jail. They opened up the jails and let 69,000 of them loose. We have to get the criminals back in that are incorrigible. So, and the other ones that come from other states come here to live the lifestyle that they do. I just repatriate them back to the states where they come from. It's a group problem that the whole of society needs to put their hands on it, not just the government, because government has, in California, used government to enrich their cronies, their peers, and those that are in office as pandering for votes. And a lot of people, I don't want nothing from government. I want to work. I want to provide for my family and my friends and keep societal standards higher because they've dropped off in the past several years. So that's it.
Thank you very much. The next person up will be Candidate Call. Your response, sir.
Marcus, homelessness is part of the society. We have to treat in a human manner, which we should agree that we are the 5th largest economy in the world. I will create shelters, homeless shelters. I don't care about these bills being passed or not. This is part of the state responsibility to cater to the homelessness, and the state of California can absorb millions of homeless people, but there has to be a structure created, and neither can we throw out of state people who come to the state of California to enjoy the beaches and the lifestyle of California. These shelters will have retraining for the homeless people. These shelters are going to be created in the state properties. These shelters are going to be with latest technologies like 3D printing and all those things. I'm going to be utilizing all the state assets to take care of my people, whether they are homeless or not. That is my responsibility as the governor of California. But I would like to retrain them. Mark my words, retrain them. Whether it takes 6 months to a year, and I will have the corporate Californians involved in supporting, and they will have tax incentives to take care of these homeless people, for creating jobs for these homeless people. And this will be the corporate responsibility of the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Watts, your response, sir, as if you were governor.
Yeah, thanks. So homelessness is a huge issue, but the fundamental reason that a lot of people don't have a home is because they can't afford it. And a lot of people who can't afford it can't afford it because they don't have a job, or they don't have a high paying job, or a job that they're well suited for. So making college free can allow people to get trained and get the jobs that they need. You also get a lot of services when you're at college as part of the student support system there. And when I say college should be free, I'm not just talking about the University of California and Cal State four-year colleges. I'm also talking about community colleges, which teach trades. A lot of people have told me that trade schools are important, and I believe that's true. And I think that people should be able to get educated, and then beyond that, they can work and improve their lives. Now, another problem is that local communities have made it difficult for people to get housing because they criminalize the state of being homeless. Davis, for example, where I went to law school, had a law against being annoying in public. That law, that municipal ordinance, was unconstitutional under City of Coates versus Cincinnati. City of Cincinnati versus Coates. It's been unconstitutional for 60 years, but the City of Davis still had that law on the books, and it's a law that can be used to discriminate against homeless people. You're being annoying in public. That's unconstitutionally vague. When I was there, I filed a lawsuit against the City of Davis in my personal capacity to invalidate that law. And was faced with the threat of the lawsuit, they repealed that ordinance, and now that ordinance is no longer on the books. But it had been an unconstitutional ordinance on the books for 60 years. If I were governor, I'd make sure that no law that violates the First Amendment would get signed.
Thank you. John Drake.
Okay, so first I would say I do read every single comment that pops up. So to the dude assuming I don't know what SB 9 and SB 10 is, I do. All right. The reason why I support SB 9 and SB 10 is because because I can't remember which bill exactly, but one of them takes commercial property that is no longer in use and transforms it into housing for homeless people. And I think that I think considering how much commercial real estate will probably be going will probably no longer exist because of the virtual office space now that now exists because of COVID. I think that's an effective form of housing the homeless. But so I would pass both, but I think addressing homelessness is more than just housing. All right. It's about drug rehabilitation, mental health, jobs building programs, and helping people to be able to survive in this world. Because it's one thing if you house someone, but whether or not they can remain in that housing, it has everything to do with whether or not they have the capacity to contribute to the economy, to contribute to society, contribute to the state. And so part of that is giving them help on different levels, whether that's mental rehabilitation, drug rehabilitation, jobs building. And so that's why I support it. And I would go a step further, and in those programs, when those housing units are built or converted, I would invest in jobs building incentive programs. I would invest in rehabilitation and invest in mental health, because that's what will get them off the streets and stay off the streets.
Thank you. Jackie McGowan.
Thank you, Marcus. In order to solve the homelessness problem, we must first get to its root cause. And mental illness and drug addiction play a big part in the percentage of people that are homeless. To begin, in order to heal, we have to identify and heal the trauma that is causing people, to exacerbate their mental illness or to seek therapy through drug addiction. And if we could do that, then I think that we would begin to solve the problem, and we'd have to have a couple other steps along the way with affordable housing and things like that, job rehabilitation and such. But I would begin by legalizing psychedelics for research purposes as a therapy for all of those things.
Oh, okay. Short and sweet. All right. Holly Beatty.
I knew you were going to get it right, Marcus.
Holly Beatty.
Thank you so much. You won't forget it once you learn it. That's the good part. So, homelessness. I was raised for the first part of my life in a beautiful, idyllic setting on the rivers of the American in Sacramento. And it was beautiful to have a home and to have the safety and the groundedness of that. But when my parents divorced, like many families have separation or other reasons why there's tumultuous financial situations, I moved into welfare projects with my mother, and I for many years lived in a crime-infested project, and where there was massive drug use. And at one point, I had an internal feeling that if I continued to live there when I was 12, that I would end up probably dead or on drugs or in some other situation. So I know firsthand what it's like to live in that kind of environment. I know what it's like to be almost homeless as a child. And as an adult, I also have spent some time living in my van at times. I have to say it was a little bit more by choice, but also at those times I didn't have any money, and sometimes I didn't have any food. I didn't know where I was going to live, even though I did have family I could turn to, but it was more of a spiritual pilgrimage for me. Here in my business in Fairfax, I have helped many homeless people. What I would say is that forced building of mono structures that are huge are not the answer to homelessness. It's a very complex issue that starts at the root of how we treat one another and how we see each other as being valued or valueless. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to a series of questions from Katie Grimes. She is the editor of California Globe. These questions come from Katie Grimes. There's 7 questions. Candidates will be asked 1 question per candidate. So you're not all going to get the same question. You're going to get random questions. There's 7 different topics. We're going to randomly assign them to you. You'll get a minute to respond. 1 minute to respond to whatever the question is. First, and we're going to go in reverse order. So, David Hilbert, the question to you is, water is going to be an issue in the near future. Climate change is happening, drought is happening, water sources are drying up, and dams are being destroyed. So we're storing even less water going into the future than we ever have, while having nature provide even less water than it ever has in the last 150 years. David Hilbert, in 1 minute, as California's governor, the world's 5th largest economy, the virtual nation state, as Gavin Newsom calls it, how would you solve the water issue and make sure that we have all the water that we need? David Hilbert.
Well, first we have to resource all available sources, not just desalinization, hydroelectric, using hydroelectric reclamation and such. The problem that I've seen is that our governor in the environmental issues have actually drained our reservoirs. And so we have problems with an environmental movement that's put money into Gavin's campaign, where he goes, well, we got to save these endangered species. Well, if they're that endangered, pick them up, take them to the zoos, repopulate, and carry on. But don't sacrifice our water resources for a complete environmental overhaul because of some animals. The other part would be build more reservoirs, find more sources of subterranean water, water injection, recycling of such water. They've actually squandered our resources. Now, California, if you ask the American Indians, we go through cycles of drought every 250 years. So ask your Native Americans on what they did then, and that's what we should do.
Thank you very much. The next person up will be Kevin Call. Kevin Call, the question for you is, energy costs are only going up in California. Because we're going through hotter and hotter years, many people who are on fixed incomes rely on air conditioning. With energy prices going up, California still imports a gigantic amount of its energy from outside the state. What are you going to do as governor to make sure that energy prices are affordable, especially for middle income people, and especially during increasingly hot summers? Kevin Call, you have 1 minute.
Marcus, it's very unfortunate. We don't have a virtual state. We have a virtual governor who is incompetent. Newsom comes from the dynasty rule of four families who have tried to control the state of California for the last 80 years. I left the country of India because of dynasty rule there of the Gandhi family. I come to California and I see dynasty rule of these four families: the Pelosi family, the Newsom family, the Brown family, and the Getty family. Nobody knows this. 80 years of dynasty rule by these four families of the state of California. So all this virtual BS that he's talking about, Newsom, is because of his incompetence. California has the best brains of the world. California has the best staff of the world. Californians are the smartest people in the world. California's energy crisis is a 2-minute job. It is a 2-minute job. We control the world in alternative energy. We literally control the world in alternative energy. And this dynasty rule, because their families' interests are there in making money. I was green tech the other day. Green tech, remember the word, can solve all these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Daniel Watts. The question for you is, there's a supposed spike in petty theft and crime all across California. If that's true, what would you do to stop the supposed increase in random crime that's plaguing California in the last few months? Daniel Watts in 1 minute.
Thanks. I think a lot of the crime that gets reported as arrest rates or not even convictions. Most of these arrests, most arrests don't result in a conviction. They result in somebody being let go later. But there are First Amendment problems with a lot of the arrests that are made. Disorderly conduct. There are tons of people every year in California that are arrested for disorderly conduct, which is the vaguest crime ever. And it's basically just for being mean in the presence of a police officer. There are people who are arrested for swearing when a police officer overhears them. And then if that police officer confronts them about it, the person flips them off and says, hey, F you. And then the police officer gets mad and then they arrest them. And then that shows up as a crime. But it's not a crime. You have the First Amendment right to tell people to go F off. You do. It's an established right under the First Amendment. It is not a threat. It is not incitement of violence. You are free to express your views that someone should go F themselves. And this type of law this disorderly conduct charge is used against the most vulnerable members of our community. When it does result in a conviction, it's often homeless people. It's often people of color. It's people who can't afford to fight back. And that it's a violation of the First Amendment, but those people are terrified and they don't have lawyers or they have an overworked public defender and they can't defend themselves. That's wrong. It violates the First Amendment and it explains some of the rise in crime.
Thank you. The next question is for John Drake. John Drake, housing costs in California are essentially second to worst, if not the absolute worst in all of America. Housing costs have only gone up. And nobody seems to have a really good solution on how to make housing affordable in California. As governor, what would you do in 1 minute to fix the high cost of housing?
Well, it's my solution to fixing high housing is quite consistent in any time I'm asked this. I believe in defunding failed institutions and failed projects and reallocating those funds into housing or into any sort of program that would benefit the community. But more specifically on housing, I would say funds from the speed rail, which we are continuously funding, and we're still funding. We're getting federal funds now to fund the speed rail, which is not going anywhere. Take those funds, keep those funds, and put them into housing. Put those into jobs incentive programs. Because homelessness and housing isn't just to house. The way you address homelessness isn't just to house them. You also have to address all the underlying issues. It's called intersectionality. There's multiple things that occur in an issue, and so the way you address it is by addressing all the other issues. So, jobs incentive, rehabilitation, drug rehabilitation, mental health, and just building trust in that community and letting and kind of like Holly Beatty said, we just have to show them that we care about them, that we love them, and that we have to just make them feel welcome. And we don't do that. Like my city has had a history with kind of just pushing them into the riverbed.
Thank you. Next question is to Jackie McGowan. Jackie, California schools rank as some of the worst according to all 50 states. They are equivalent in performance, according to some estimates, with Mississippi. This has been a chronic issue that's gone on for at least 20 to 30 years. What would you do as governor to make California schools the best and not have the chronic underperformance they've suffered from for decades? Jackie McGowan.
I believe that, we all get what we pay for. And so if we were to increase, the pay for teachers, we would get a better outcome. It's got to be really hard to get up and go to work every day and barely get by and care about every single child in your class when you're struggling yourself. And so if we want our kids to learn more, we need to incentivize the people that are teaching them. So increasing their salaries is where I would begin.
Okay, thank you very much. Last question goes to Holly Beatty. Holly Beatty, wildfires are going to be the worst this year than they've ever been in about a century. Climate change models show that wildfires will only continue to get bigger and larger, burning hotter and over larger acreage than ever before. It's an unprecedented situation, according to some. What would you do, especially given the fact that there will be less federal assistance fighting fires this year, even with the Biden administration, to stop wildfires plaguing and burning down half of California? Holly Beatty.
Thank you so much, Marcus. First of all, I really question your presupposition that wildfires are going to be worse than they've ever been before. I think that's a consistent presupposition that the media has given us, and I wonder, where does that come from? What kind of fear are we trying to feed the public? I question what you just said. But second of all, I feel like it's very simple. We live in a land that was cultivated. The Native Americans had no word for wild. Everything was cultivated. We have hands, we have love, we have community collaboration, and we have an obscene 75 billion surplus. If I was made governor tomorrow, you betcha I would get every community member a shovel and a rake and machetes and whatever else they need, and I would be out there with them with my boots on, and we would be taking out all the underbrush. That's right. And also, we would be preempting all of this dry material. I would be out there. Let's spray it all with water with the airplanes before the fires come. There is so much resource. There is so much solution to this issue. And really, I ask you to question, where does that presupposition come from, if not perhaps manufactured fire? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay, Tom Elias is not going to be with us for this second half, and I appreciate all of you being here. In order to be fair to the first panel and to you, I'm going to give you each an additional minute for your closing statement. So the first panel had 1 minute, you get 2. They had Elias. Elias isn't here, so you're going to get an extra minute in order to compensate. All of you will have your closing statement. This will be your final last 2 minutes. Now, that extra minute isn't free. I'm asking you to point out why your answers were better than anyone else today on this panel. Why are you the best candidate? How come you have the best answers? Why are your policies better? Voters are going to have to choose. Please make their decision easy for them. Why were you the best candidate to appear on stage, and how come your answers were better than everyone else's? This is a decision voters will have to make, and they're looking to you for leadership. We will go in reverse order. First up is Holly Beatty, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you so much, Marcus. I love the California yes. I would just add California yes and. Yes and. I do not believe that I'm a better person than the other candidates. I believe that we all have wonderful insights, and that the most important thing is that we are having a conversation, and that our state has a conversation about what kind of leadership we really want to have. Kevin, I love what you have to say about the dynasty. Yeah, let's let go of that dynasty. We don't need that dynasty there. We can have real people in office being willing to serve the public with our hearts and with a level head and without monetary personal interest. Totally agree. Jackie, if I'm the governor, hey man, anybody in jail for cannabis, let's let them free right now. And on top of that, let's just get rid of all of bureaucracy and get that cannabis going. Daniel, hey man, free education, I'm right there with you. Like, we are going to go head to head with that, and we're going to make sure that that happens, because there's no reason anybody should be paying for college education. If you want to go to a private college and pay more, go for it. But if you just need the basics, if you want to go to a really awesome state school, I'm your candidate. You know what? I love this Zoomer guy. John, you are so awesome, and I love your passion, and I love how you come up with, you're just so real. I think we need more folks that are just real and this is an example of a divine masculine who has ideas and knows he wants to bring them forward, but probably feels thwarted, right? Where do you bring all of these ideas? How do you bring them forward? We need to activate our divine masculine. We need to raise up our divine feminine, and also we need to champion our divine blended. That's right, divine blended, not trans. Nobody is transhuman. So long as you're in a body, you have one. You're not transhuman. Let's get rid of the AI. We can honor what the technology can give to us, but also we really need to honor that we all have the human capacity to evolve and innovate. And thank you, Marcus, for listening to me and providing a forum for this wonderful group of people here.
Thank you. Next up will be Jackie McGowan. Jackie McGowan, if you were governor, ruling over 40 million people, why are you the best candidate versus everyone else voters have seen today? How are your answers more insightful and more precise for the issues we have? Jackie McGowan.
I'm the best candidate on this ticket because I have a voter base of 8 million people that have been ignored. I expand on that voter base by being pro-gun, by being pro psychedelics and research into that field. And I am standing up for the bad policies that have hurt every business in this state. Newsom has systematically dismantled the will of small business owners to keep going. And I will speak to them, and I will find solutions and ways to ease their burdens, because a pandemic on top of civil unrest and fires has been enough for everyone to handle. Thank you.
Short and sweet. John Drake, you're governor of California. Millions and millions of people are looking to you. It's in fact the world's 5th largest economy, and it routinely leads on issues from climate change to internet security. Why are you the best person to manage this gigantic mass of humans?
I think what's most, first of all, thank you, Holly. Love the comments. I think what's really telling about my generation is that young Republicans and young Democrats alike both share one common agreement, that there needs to be more government, addressing things that it finds unequitable. So like housing, education, and healthcare, we have the same idea of the role of government, just different ways of getting there. And so even most young Republicans are out of touch, or most older Republicans are out of touch with young Republicans. Same way most older Democrats are out of touch with younger Democrats. And having someone there in literally the biggest state in the union, the wealthiest state in the union, having a young person in that position being like, hey guys, like let's actually make some real progress, like let's have a progressive base going on, that will inspire other people to end up taking just going out into politics, trying to make a bigger and better change, and just trying to hone in on everything that makes us great in the United States. And I would say I think I would be the best candidate just because I'm living this every single day. I'm currently going to college. I am trying to afford housing. I'm trying to afford healthcare, and so I'm experiencing this situation every day. And any policy I push forward isn't just going to affect you, but it's going to affect me as well. So you can trust that anything I do, I'm definitely going to be thinking about. Unlike the people in Sacramento who pass policies and it doesn't affect them, which is one reason why they don't really care about any of us. So I would say that's about it.
Thank you. Next up will be Daniel Watts.
Hi, Daniel Watts, running for governor on two issues, free speech and free college. I would like your vote because my voting base, the votes that I get, are going to be the voice of people saying that these issues matter. College affordability and free speech in California. I am not running against anyone. I'm not running against Governor Newsom. I'm not running against Holly and her machetes. I'm not running against Mr. Drake, who I'm so happy he's running, a college student. I am running for something. I am running to protect free speech and to protect affordability of college in California. We have a free speech crisis. You don't read about it every day, but Congressman Devin Nunes in California is suing a fake cow on Twitter. He's been suing this fake cow account that mocks the heck out of him for years. Corey Schumacher, who is a city councilwoman in Carlsbad, she sued someone who shows up to public input at city council meetings for harassment. And that person won, and now she has to pay $42,000 to them, possibly from the city coffers. And then you've got Governor Newsom, who was playing whack-a-mole with the Supreme Court during the pandemic. He had unconstitutional aspects of the lockdown orders. I'm not going into the details on everything there, but some of them were found to violate the First Amendment by the Supreme Court. And to try to hide them from court review, he would say, oh, we're going to repeal them, and then he'd put them back in place. And then he'd repeal them, and then he'd put them back in place. And he was doing that intentionally to dodge court review. That's not right. That's not what should happen. But I'm not running against Newsom. I'm not running against Holly, certainly not with her machetes. And I'm not running against Mr. Drake, and I'm not running against the other people here. I'm running for two things, to support free speech and to support free college. And I've been consistent on this point for 18 years. In 2003, when I ran for governor, when I was 20 years old, lower student fees, college student issues, that's what I ran against. That's what I'm running again now, what I'm running again on now, and also free speech. So Daniel Watts for governor, go to wattsforgovernor.com. My whole platform's there in 4 words. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up will be Kevin Call. Kevin Call, you've traveled the world. You've seen many things. You've seen California from outside. How would you lead California, given everything you know and everything you've seen, sir, in 2 minutes? I'm sorry. Hold on. My bad. You are unmuted.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, my fellow speakers, all of you. Good luck to all of you. You are all great candidates and fighting against an evil empire of the dynasty rule. This dynasty rule is on both sides, Republican and Democratic sides. We had Cheney interest with Halliburton, got us $3 trillion in losses. Now we have this dynasty rule and all the problems, families, only these 4 families benefit from. I come from a country which Modi, as the Prime Minister of India, broke the dynasty rule in India. I, Kevin Call, for governor, I'm standing for governor to break this dynasty rule in the state of California, bring it back to its original diamond state status from broken gold state status. And I can do it because I'm the founder chairman of US Global Business Forum. I am capable, and my organization and all Californians are capable to bring in $5 to $10 trillion, $5 to $10 trillion of new businesses coming into California from 200 countries, established, approved by the United Nations, 193 nations. I'm going to be setting up California trade offices in all these 193 approved nations to bring in $5 to $10 trillion new business, and every household of California, 15 million households, will get $1 million. Take my words and take it to the bank. $1 million. Every 15 million households will be getting to save California and make it into a diamond state. My name is Kevin. Call for governor.com. And I am a loyalist, American first, Californian second, unlike our present governor who did
Thank
not
you.
have
Thank you.
the Independence Day opened up last year. And that is the
Thank you.
reason, as a patriotic American, I'm running for governor of California. Thank you,
Thank you.
Marcus.
Thank you. Okay, last up will be Mr. Hilberg. Mr. Hilberg, in 2 minutes. Why are you the best candidate here? Why were your answers the best? Why should voters choose you, sir?
There is no best candidate. The problem is so enormous and large that the only application would be the Constitution of California and that of the United States, with the enforcement of law upon our political officials that have corrupted it. There are many things that have been happening because everybody says everybody's equal. Well, I disagree. There are many people, no one's equal to another. Some have positives, some have negatives, some have more physical traits, some have more intellect, some have more personality, some have more business sense. There is no such thing as equality. You have equality of opportunity to all, unless, we have what we have in the government, where we have entitlements to everyone. Everyone's being pandered to. They're getting free stuff, which is paid for by those who work. There should be a safety net for those who are unable to do it. Yet there are so many out there that refuse to work because they're receiving supplemental incomes from the government. Now, you have to think generationally and in the long term. What can one person do in 1 year or even one term as governor? The only thing they can do is enforce the law upon the politicians who broke it. Title 8 of the Immigration Code, that's been violated for over 45 years in California. We are now a sanctuary state. Aiding and abetting illegal aliens is a crime. And we have civilians who are not politicians serving 8 years in federal penitentiaries for aiding and abetting. So why do these people get reelected? They don't. California voting has been rigged for the past 45 years. You watched it from the very beginning, and if you connect the dots, you find the laws, the proposition that the amendment they gave. It gave people a false sense of participation in government. High-speed rail, that is what it is. And in order to be a governor, you have to govern by the law and of the constitutions. Otherwise, you're just pandering to chaos.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that concludes our second round of the debate. I want to thank all of the candidates for being here. We will be having additional debates next weekend. I will send you a copy of this video shortly. But I wanted to point something out. Take a look at all the candidates that you see routinely mentioned in the news. Only one of them is a woman. There are 2 women here. Why aren't there more women talked about in the race? Why are all the top 4 candidates Caucasian? We have immigrants and minorities here. Why aren't they mentioned? And secondly, my favorite part is this. John Drake and Daniel Watts, could you wave your hand, please? So John Drake is in his 20s. He's a political science student, and he's jumping into democracy. 20 years ago, Daniel Watts was where John Drake is. He too was 20, jumped into the recall race. Daniel's still here. And I just wanted to point out, I'm not endorsing either candidate. You can choose not to vote for either one. But I wanted to point out how healthy it is in a democracy to have young people participating, to have young voices listened to have multiple women listened to, and to have people of an immigrant background listened to. And you're not going to see that covered by the mainstream news at all. Why does that happen in the world's most diverse state, which has lots of youth and lots of women and lots of minorities? How come the people that represent California just don't seem to be covered by the media at all?
Mark, someday
everybody's going to get an answer.
I hope to run in the John Drake recall election 3 years from now. That's what I aspire to.
Well, hey, I am running in 2022 as well, so.
The media is bought by the Chinese. 40% of the media is bought by the Chinese in the United States. Marcus, your answer to the question is China has taken over America and these dynasty families. Nobody is talking about that. They celebrate 100 years of the CCP rule in China. They elaborate and they are happy that America is happy that 100 years of communism is being talked about on the American media. That's what America has become. Break the dynasty rule.
I just like to say,
I
Kevin,
just
I
like
agree.
to say
I
goodbye,
agree with you.
everyone. Like I'm over
But
on the time
I also
that I
think
had
that
here,
it's just
and it
time
was
to build
fun, and
bridges.
good night. Hope to
You know, it's
Thank
time to
you.
build bridges and not fight.
China.
I hope we can do that together.
Kevin, thank you. You've made your point, Kevin. Thank you. John?
Okay. I would say this. It's much easier to defend the status quo every 4 years than to make actual change. So,
agree.
Like get this. BLM comes in and out every 4 years. 2012, 2016, 2020. The minute now we're not even talking about BLM. We're not even talking about it anymore. Why? Because they were easy to use. It was great to use them as, hey, look how diverse, look how woke we are. And then the minute any election sort of goes by, we don't need them anymore. And that's their entire idea. And it's easier to have rich, old, white, multimillionaire men dictating policy than and then just using diversity as a political talking point every 4 years. That's how it always works, especially in California. California, just because we have, just because whites are a minority in the state of California, doesn't mean that there are still structural imbalances that exist. And so.
Well, I agree with you, John. I'd like to see real change for equity and equality instead of just using it as a talking point or a marketing scheme to Trojan horse other issues like building here in Fairfax. We're being forced to take on 14,000 new units in all of Marin, where there's no water and there's no access for safe evacuation of fire. But we're being forced just in our small little town to build 400 units within like 2 square blocks because the state government forcing local towns and telling them what they have to do.
I will say
and
this.
You know, it's incredible how they Trojan horse things and they force us to go into policies that aren't good for any of us.
I will say this. And, like, look at the month of July, Gay Pride Month. Gay capitalism was huge. The minute it wasn't July anymore, or sorry, June. I meant June. The minute it wasn't June anymore, gay pride flags went down. They tore down all the gay pride stuff because, hey, this was easy to use for profit. It was easy to use to gain people, gain money, gain political support, and now it's just gone. And we see this consistently throughout the entire United States. No one cares. No one cares in California that they're being used as pawns. No one cares that there's no real incremental change because either they're so just turned off by politics because they know every time they're going to get thrown out, or our education system has failed them to the point where they don't even understand it through basic terms. Like I was talking with a woman about the recall, right? And
okay, John, just a few seconds. You can finish your comment, but
all right.
I'm trying to wrap up.
I was talking to this woman about the recall, about trying to get her to sign my paper. And she was like, but I like Newsom. I'm like, I don't care. Like, great job. But you do know that if he gets recalled, though, that there's going to be another candidate on the ballot and that you can still vote for so they can take the place. And she's like, I like Newsom. I'm like, okay. So I had to let it go. But see, there's just a sense of ignorance in California that, hey, it's okay because if I support this and that, that's all that matters.
Yeah,
anyway.
They live within themselves rather than looking at an outside perspective. My brother is married to a communist Chinese. She is scared to death of what our country's becoming because she lived through it. Her entire family went through the Cultural Revolution. Her grandfather, who was a mayor of a prefect, he was thrown in jail because the citizens were prospering, and he was not a total party person. So the township itself revolted. They returned him, and he was a mayor ever since until he passed away about 5 years ago. I have another brother who is married to a green card holder. And when they passed the border, they had to pay a little under $600 to get into the United States because
Thank you, Daniel.
their green card was backed up. So there's a lot of disparity going on.
Thank you very much. I'm going to end the debate now. Really appreciate the comments. I will send you the video. I did want to say that I was pleased that Yes California was able to host debates that actually reflect the profile of California, which is not happening in the mainstream news. Thank you, and that'll be
Thank
it.
you, Marcus.
And
Thank you,
very much.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Love you all. Bye-bye.
It's the California Recall Debate, hosted by Yes California.